AmandaLand,
AmandaLanders, it is time. The AmandaLand Summit has arrived this weekend at the People's Forum in New York City. Now, if you are not one of the members of the actual summit, you can still participate in some of our awesome events. One, we have Cracking Up the System going down on Saturday morning, where we are combining comics, Davidson Boswell and Christina Brown, with organizers Angelica Landon and Claudia de la Cruz to talk about organizing. I know so many of y'all are like, what's the solution? What can I do? Well, we're not only going to tell you about what you can do, but we're going to do it funny. Because that's what we do at Smart, Funny, and Black Productions. In addition, that evening, we have a live taping of Views from AmandaLand, the first ever. And my guests will be I Am Blakely.
I don't know why some of you, my fellow marshmallow bitches, are trying to argue with me in the comments about this fact. I used to get butthurt and defensive when black people would make generalizations about me because I'm white. But eventually I decided that I was going to choose not to be offended by it anymore, because I realized that people make assumptions based on aggregate data. Because you understand that despite a lot of men being like, well, not all men, you can look to data and your own experiences. You don't think black people look to their own experiences and the aggregate data they see about the way white people treat them?
And Eugene Perrier.
And the struggle of the Palestinian people for freedom, for self-determination and dignity speaks to the exact opposite agenda of the imperialists. It speaks to a crossroads of the world, a cradle of civilization, a West Asia and North Africa rooted in peace, rooted in people living together regardless of whatever your religion may be, rooted in a democratic set of values. I mean, it's the exact opposite of the brutal, corrupt regimes that have been installed with Israel at the center to maintain imperial hegemony. So crushing the Palestinian people is critically important to the entire imperial project to reassert its own power at a moment that it is slipping. So Gaza is the compass that helps us orient and understand that reality.
So these are events that you can attend. It's $10 to come in person and $5 to watch on live stream, and all folks under 18 are free admission. Just go to peoplesforum.org and get your ticket. And let's just say that you can't do any of this, but you want to support, go to amandaseals.com and donate, because this whole thing is coming out of my pocket. So excited to finally make this happen. And it's only happening because the AmandaLanders said, we want this. We want to be together in person, and we want to put our minds together to elevate not just ourselves, but our community. So we'll be doing that this weekend at the first ever AmandaLand Summit. Oh, and before I forget, we're going to have the AmandaLand Export Store pop-up. So for those of you who want to get your goodies and also some exclusive stuff that is not available online, we will see you at the People's Forum. And yes, we will have security, because we are not playing with these crazy people. What up, y'all? Why is this not working? Good morning. I'm just finishing up my prep. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to y'all, there was so much to prepare, to talk about, and I ended up having to really kind of like choose, and I'm not sure if I chose right, but to be quite honest, I am so getting ready. I have so much stuff that I've been having to do to get ready for the summit that today we're doing a lot of responding to what other people are saying. Okay, we're doing a lot of responding to what other people are saying, because that is the easier route that we're going to go. But I want to welcome everybody to the show. Thank you for joining us, waking up on the right side of history. And this is, of course, Views from AmandaLand. Hold on one second. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay. All right. Because I thought I was ready and I wasn't. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. And so our guest today, I'm excited. I don't know if you guys are ready. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of African Stream, but the creator of African Stream, Ahmed Kaballo, was on Small Doses podcast a few weeks ago talking about African Stream and talking about how, ultimately they were taken down because Democrats basically felt a way about them talking about the United States and what they were doing in the motherland. And they came up with lies about them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they were taken down, and nonetheless, they still have, reporters that are all over. So just like there's many journalists that are in Gaza, there's reporters and journalists all over the planet, actually, but also in the motherland that are reporting on what's going down there without the corporate dollars infringing upon the way that they speak. And I am teaming up with Ahmed Kaballo to once a month have someone from their team give us the rundown on what's going on in the motherland. I'm going to call it the Africa Tap-In. All right. The Africa Tap-In is going down, and we're going to be starting the first one today here on Views from AmandaLand. So today we are going to meet our Africa Tap-In journalists, and, because again, it's incredibly important that we cross culture, that we coalition build. And I am so excited to be able to coalition build with these folks. I'm really excited to coalition build with you all at the summit. If you're watching us on Instagram, please make sure to come over to YouTube, Amanda Seales TV. If you are watching us in the replay, thank you. Make sure that you leave a comment and get the algorithm moving. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, thank you for tapping in. Want to remind you all, there are going to be concerted efforts to shut down voices like mine. It is imperative that you follow my newsletter. It is imperative that if you can afford the $5 a month, that you subscribe to my Patreon if you want to continue to be in touch with me in the event that things go that route. Because as you know, these people are absolutely looking for any reason to shut people down. We'll be talking about that in today's show, this attack on leftists, which, by the way, and I will repeat this, if it's leftists that are causing all the violence, then where are you? Because we know what the alt-right is. So if it's the left that's causing all the violence, then where are you? I mean, does that make, am I right? Where is you? So, things to think about. For 60-second headlines, we have comedian Che Guerrero, who will be joining us to talk about all the things that are going down, including Jerry leaving Ben and Jerry's, ICE is abducting New York students from high schools, and this person who sang a song about lynching. And of course, we're going to pay some respects to Trey Reed, the Delta University. Is it Delta College or Delta University? Delta State University in Mississippi, the student who was lynched, and they are saying it's no foul play. I can't even honestly make sense sometimes of the nonsense. You know what I mean? And for those of you who don't know, some of these stories I talked about on Instagram. So if you don't see the same clips, etc., you can find them on IG. Okay. So I want to remind you of that. Also want to remind you that after the show, we head over to Patreon, and we have the after show kickback, where the folks of Patreon gather and talk about what they learned on the show and what they're learning in other places. And it's a place for community. It's a place for real just exchange and conversation. And it's something that I think a lot of people are really enjoying, because they may not be able to get that in their own, communities, like their physical communities. And so I'm glad that I'm able to provide that for you guys. So join us after the show for the after show kickback. And sorry, I have the wrong thing up here. Do I feel manic to you guys? I feel a little manic, right? I feel a little manic. Can I regulate real quick? Let me. I need to regulate. Hold on. Oh, this one. Okay. All right, we regulated. I had to get that out. I had to stim it and get it together. All right, so before we get into our guest for Views from AmandaLand, let's ask our bonus question of the day.
Bonus question. Bonus question. Bonus question. Bonus question.
So today's bonus question is, can you be friends with a racist? I asked this question because I think a lot of y'all don't realize you are friends with racists. And I really would like you to admit this to yourself. And I want you to drop your answer in the comments, and I want you to say why. And I want you to tell me if you've ever realized that you were friends with a racist. It's very easy to say no, but I want you to ask yourself, wait a minute, because I think some people think that when they're friends with a racist, they mean like friends with Jim Bob, who has a Confederate flag hanging up in his house, knowing full well that you have absolutely had people in your life who were showing you glimpses of like, and you still kept going, right? You still kept them in your life. Even if you knew that they was funny style, you still allowed them access to you. And of course, this doesn't apply to like spaces that you can't control. However, I want you to ask yourself this, because I see a lot of people also keeping friends who are Zionists and acting like that's not being friends with a racist. And it is, because listen, if you are friends with someone who is racist against another group, that still counts. Sure, you may be Latino and they're not racist against Latinos, but they're racist against Black people. Sure, you may be Black and they're not there, and they're a white person who has no problems with Blacks, but they can't stand those Asians. And we can expand it from racist to prejudice as well. We can expand it from racist to prejudice as well. But I want you to ask yourself, can you be friends with a racist? Have you been friends with a racist? How did it end? How did it end? Keep it a buck, y'all. Can you be friends with a racist? Have you been friends with a racist? How did it end? Because I know y'all be fronting. How did it end? All right. How did it end? Let's get into our word of the day. I'm excited to play our word of the day game at the AmandaLand Summit, because originally I was going to make it like competitive. And then I was like, no, that's the problem. We have too much of this competition energy. It needs to be communicative. I don't know if that's a word, but communicative. All right. And so I figured out a way to make it a community game. That's not about winning, but it's about interacting and coalition building. Very proud of myself. This came to me at 5 a.m. Maybe that's why I'm so like, because I've been up since 5 a.m. thinking. All right. Today's word is slovenly. The word is slovenly. I love this word. S-L-O-V-E-N-L-Y. Untidy, dirty, careless. It's an adjective. S-L-O-V-E-N-L-Y. Slovenly. Can we use it in a sentence? Can we use it in a sentence? Slovenly. SLOVENLY, slovenly. While you're thinking about it, all my people over here on Instagram, head on over to YouTube, Amanda Seals TV, click on that live tab and join us, because that's where you're going to experience the real show, where you're going to hear the music, you're going to hear the voices. We have our guest Che Guerrero joining us in a second. Like, this is where you need to be. I don't know why I'm talking like this, but it's because Che, it's because Che is coming on. Aye. All right, let's get some sentences here. Slovenly. Lester Baptiste says Donald Trump is more and more maintaining a slovenly appearance in public. You better say that, Lester. Wait, why all y'all came for Trump? Slovenly, the barber cut Trump's hair. Lamb said Trump's hair is slovenly. Why did all y'all come for the same man? Tiki Tuki said I wrote this comment slovenly because I'm trying to get it on screen. I feel you. Wait, y'all all of y'all went for the same situation. Trump appeared unkempt and slovenly. Okay. Lauren says she slovenly organized her desk, but I knew it was a reflection of her mental health. Sometimes I think people will come in my house and maybe think that it's a reflection of my mental health. And it's like, no, it's a reflection of capitalism. That's why my house looks like this, because I'm trying to do 11 jobs. And one of them is not cleaning the house. Miss Bless 313, shout out to the D, said after watching the Katrina documentary, the water left the neighborhoods and were left. Woo. After watching the Katrina documentary, when water left, the neighborhoods were left slovenly. There it is. I got you, sis. I got you. All right, let's get one more. In here. No, Diana, it's not the cats. The cats don't keep my house messy. The cats are very tidy, by the way. The cats ain't the problem. It's me picking something up, putting it down, and then moving on to the next task and forgetting that it's there. And then I pick the next thing up and then I put it down. So it's really undiagnosed ADHD. I mean, let's keep it a buck. That's really what it is. Okay, last one, because we're going to end it on how we started. D5 weather reporter says Trump leans forward to appear less slovenly in front of the camera. Meanwhile, we need foreign dignitaries to point in different directions, pretending to compete for his attention, and then dimmer. Oh my God, you're going to get the show cut. You're going to get the show canceled. I do not support the statements of D5. Okay, we're going to bring up our host, and then we're going to do the roll call while our host is here. I mean, we're going to bring up our guest, and then we're going to do the roll call while our guest is here. How about that? So let's bring up our 60-second headlines guest, Che Guerrero.
60-second headlines. And I run down some news right quick.
Run it down, mama. Put us on.
Good morning, Che.
Good morning.
I am running behind today, so bear with me. We're going to do a quick roll call to find out where these people are that are watching the show. You ready?
I'm ready.
Come on, AmandaLand! Shooby-dooby-dooby-doo-doo-doo. Let's go! AmandaLanders here to learn. Drop in and tell us where you're coming from. It's me and Che Guerrero. We are hanging out right here at Views from AmandaLand. AmandaLanders here to learn. Hey, drop in and tell us where you're watching from. Che, where are you joining us from?
I'll say Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Stockholm, Sweden, Brooklyn, New York. Hello from the island of Guam. Orlando, Florida, Portland, Oregon, Nashville, Tennessee, Central Pennsylvania, Chi City, Forney, Texas, Cali, Colombia, Nashville, Middleton, Massachusetts, España, St. Louis, Brooklyn, Minneapolis, Philly, Decatur, Georgia, Fillmore, San Francisco, London, South Orange, New Jersey, Charlotte, North Carolina, Detroit, the occupied DMV. We got Houston, Texas. Good morning from the Bronx, Fort Worth, Texas, Tejas, Dallas, Texas, Chicago, and it's her son's birthday.
Frisco, San Francisco, California, Gardena, California, Far Rockaway, Queens, Winnipeg, Canada, and Long Beach, California. AmandaLanders here to learn. Thank you for telling me where you're watching from. Marseille and Mexico City. Yay. We're international, Che.
Yo, and I love the international community that you've built. Yo, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Gracias.
Beautiful. Thank you all for watching.
Yo, it's bugged out because everyone's time zones are crazy too.
Yeah, right. People watch
So
like
I'm
2 in the morning.
still
and
definitely
stuff.
in bed, like
Somebody's at the security job just watching you.
the security job is nuts because the accuracy of that is very real. One time I went into, this is a longer story, but I was being chased by a Haitian cab driver, but that's another story for another time. But I ran into a building on South Beach. It was it wasn't a hotel, but it was like a condo building on South Beach to like get help from the security guard because my phone was dead and he was literally sitting there watching porn. And I was like, is this the person to help me? Like, I don't necessarily think this is the best choice.
How do you run from a bad situation to a worse?
There you go. Because you're in Miami.
Yeah, that's Miami.
Because you're in Miami. Okay. It's not like you're in like Saskatchewan. You're in Miami. So the odds of this, yeah, that was a wild time. Because I got into the cab and I asked, do you take credit cards? And he was like, yes. And then when we pulled up to the hotel, he was like, no.
Okay.
And I was with my stylist, who's a little blonde white girl, Allison, and she was like, what are we going to do? And I was like, I mean, I said, sir, I don't have no cash. He's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. And I'm like, but I asked you before we got in the car. He's like, well, I changed my mind because they don't like the fee on the credit card.
Yeah.
So
they're trying to take it
then
out of you.
I was like, F that. And I started to get out the car. Your man drove off when the door was open, bro.
Oh.
The door was open. He said, skr, skr. We were in a movie because both of our doors were open. It was like, whoa. So he's like, we're going to the ATM. We're going to the bank. We're going to the bank and you're going to take the money out at the ATM.
Oh, geez.
So he's
like kidnapping at that point.
That is correctly what it is. So he pulls up to the bank, pulls up to the ATM. And I was like, I need you to get ready because we're about to run out of this motherfucking car.
Yeah.
And she's wearing platforms. And so when we pulled up, we hopped out. And we ran. And we ran. And then we hid behind the building. Okay. And she's like, I was like, you need to get it to fucking together. We need to save ourselves. You need to get it to fucking together. So we're on Collins, but we're like hiding behind a building. And like, I'm waiting for him to like move. So now we like, and we go around this building and then we sprint across Collins. And do you know this broad fell?
No, of course, like it's in a movie. I'm sorry, just the white chick, like, oh no. You're like, damn.
I was so mad. Like, get up! So now I'm like dragging her in her platforms. She's like, she's gonna get us killed.
Oh my gosh.
The Haitian mafia is gonna come murk us.
For $80.
For $80. So we ran into this building, this condo, to get them, because I forgot why we didn't have our phones or our phones were dead or something, but it was like we needed him to call the hotel.
Yeah.
To tell them to send the car to come get us. And this man, we walk in and we're like, and there's a different kind of panting going on.
I wasn't gonna go there. But I was like, damn.
Oh, that
He's
was
like, no, it sounds,
like he had audio.
it sounds real.
Yeah, like it wasn't. He's like, wow, surround sound.
That sounds crazy.
He didn't even have it on mute. That's how comfortable he was at this job. Like, it was loud enough for me able to be like, what? And then, what? Can I help you? And I was like, okay, this is what I need you to do. I had to get over that. So anyways, that was story time, y'all.
Wild.
Thank
you for sharing that.
I wonder how she's doing today. I hope she's not a Zionist.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, and you're right. A lot of friendships from when I was young to now. I'm like, damn.
Especially we're comics.
I didn't want to get into that because I didn't know how much, but like that's actually what I was talking to. You were talking about if it's a space you can't control, and I think for us, I'm speaking for myself. I started when I was 18. I was very unaware of the space I was stepping into, and a lot of the people that I started with have moved to the right and are part of that world that are that are
we don't speak that man's name, so just know
yeah,
that.
I know, I'm trying to think, but it's giving air to what he's saying. It's trying to like make jokes of it or whatever, and it's just seeing that so much in the space that's supposed to be
in them.
It was in them, and it's come out, and it's also kind of taken over the comedy world. It's almost like the mainstream comedy situation that I'm finding a lot.
When I tell you, Che, I be getting out of places right on time.
Yeah. I'm also like, I'd rather just find my own community and my own rooms to play because
it's out there.
It's out there. It's
what
out
are you
there.
doing this weekend?
This weekend coming up, I'm on dad time. I'm just, I have my kids every other weekend, so this is my dad weekend. Yeah.
Well, I want to connect you to some people who feel the same way, some comics that feel the same way.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, so that you guys can, because that's really what it ends up being. It's like it just pushes this. If this side is going to go this far, then we have to go as well. But I feel like there's a lot of folks that also like don't even necessarily like care either way. They're just trying to come up, and they're just willing to be a part of it because like whatever, like as long as I get on.
Yeah,
which I find even more disturbing.
I mean, I'll be honest. If one thing I can be, I used to be that sort of comedian that really aligned themselves with that. And then the second I started, seeing kids in cages back in 2017 and started speaking up, I realized, you guys are looking for a certain type of person of color that you allow in the space. And I'm just not that, But I'd rather be on this side with you.
Yay!
All day, every day. All day, every day. From Houston to Japan to Mexico City.
Listen, it's squad up. It's squad up. No, but I mean, like California just passed a law that you can't say anything challenging Israel in their schools, in their K through 12 schools.
Wow.
The state of California. So when I tell you, like it really is bugged out. And, I don't think a lot of people understand though, that like the comedy world, it's like a lot of, it's more non-funny people than funny people. And like, when you're starting out, it's a lot of not funny people whose version of funny is to just be like shocking or really, what's the word I'm looking for? Just me. Yeah.
It's a meanness. It's a meanness that comes from no place of humor or like empathy. It's just mean to be mean.
And they think it's funny.
They think it's funny.
It's not. It's not. So let's get into our 60-second headlines. I don't know if you saw, because I sent you an updated list of stories, because when I woke up this morning, I saw that Jerry from Ben & Jerry's says, I'm out of here. He said, you know what? I can't be a part of this company anymore. And I'm about to read his statement for you guys. All right. So he says, it's with a broken heart that I've decided I can no longer in good conscience and after 47 years remain an employee of Ben & Jerry's. I'm resigning from the company Ben and I started in 1978. This is one of the hardest and most painful decisions I've ever made. This isn't because I've lost my love for the people at Ben & Jerry's. It's quite the opposite. The folks who show up every day in our factories, scoop shops, and offices are some of the most passionate, caring, and values-driven people you'll ever meet. They are the soul of Ben & Jerry's. What has made their work so important to me and what allowed the company to be more than just an ice cream company was the independence to pursue our values, which was guaranteed when Unilever bought the company. Are you listening? Are you listening? For more than 20 years under their ownership, Ben & Jerry's stood and spoke out in support of peace, justice, and human rights, not as abstract concepts, but in relation to real events happening in our world. That independence existed in no small part because of the unique merger agreement Ben and I negotiated with Unilever, one that enshrined our social mission and values in the company's governance structure in perpetuity. It's profoundly disappointing to come to the conclusion that that independence, the very basis of our sale to Unilever, is gone. Now, just a side note, they were silly for thinking that that would exist, but I digress. And it's happening at a time when our country's current administration is attacking civil rights, voting rights, the rights of immigrants, women, and literally everything. Like, look at this list. This sounds like when you watch those commercials and they're like, side effects include eye sweat, earworms, arm hurt. And you're like, is there any part of my body that's not going to be affected by this? Standing up for the values of justice, equity, and our shared humanity has never been more important. And yet Ben & Jerry's has been silenced, sidelined for fear of upsetting those in power. It's easy to stand up and speak out when there's nothing at risk. The real test of values, are you listening? The real test of values is when times are challenging and you have something to lose. Love, equity, justice. They're part of who Ben and I are, and they've always been the true foundation of Ben & Jerry's. From the very beginning, Ben and I believed that our values and the pursuit of justice were more important than the company itself. If the company couldn't stand up for the things we believed in, then it wasn't worth being a company at all. It was always about more than just ice cream. It was a way to spread love and invite others into the fight for equity, justice, and a better world. Coming to the conclusion that this is no longer possible at Ben & Jerry's means I can no longer remain part of Ben & Jerry's. If I can't carry those values forward inside the company today, then I will carry them forward outside with all the love and conviction I can. Why is Ben staying?
I wasn't going to throw Ben under the bus. You know what I mean? Under that banana split bus or whatever they call it. But yeah, it is.
What are your thoughts?
I do agree with you that it was kind of silly for them to think that if they were bought by a giant corporation that's now trying to become the ice cream empire, that you were going to be able to stay independent. That is a white man who never thought they were going to come for them. I like Jerry. He seems to be on the right side, but once again, his privilege shows.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I'm a white man making ice cream. Ain't nobody coming for me. They came for the ice cream makers. They came for the ice cream makers, and you said nothing.
Nothing.
Now you get vanilla. That's all you get.
That's all you get.
That's all you get. Rocky Road, not in this world.
Nope. Oh,
and
chocolate.
It's also like Unilever. There's one thing I'll say. Like, it was the same thing with Target. Like, did you really think that betraying the people who, you know, come there, that it's going to be good for business? You know, like, once people started boycotting Target or Coca-Cola or anything like that, they lost money. Ben & Jerry is a staple, if you want to call it, of the left. Okay, that's the ice cream that you're like, oh, I love these dudes. They're always on the right side of history. Whatever, they're on sale. They're never on sale, but if they are, I'll pick up a few. You know what I mean? And it's just like, when this happens, are people really going to buy that ice cream? You just ruin the brand by not letting these guys be the dumb.
And I feel like, you know, they probably just don't care, but it's fascinating how they just don't really think beyond themselves, like these corporations, right? But then again, that's just a part of it, of white supremacy. Like the lady who called the cops, or who called ICE on the plant in Georgia, she called them and she did a video about it. And then, of course, Korea was like, we're bringing our people back, because she didn't realize that the reason why all those Koreans were there was because the instructions were in Korean. Mm-hmm. To build the factory. And the reason I know this to be true is because my godfather, he was trying to start a juice factory in Grenada, and when all the factory parts arrived, they were in French.
So you needed French engineers to come over and build this for him.
He was like, no! So like, that's a real thing. And listen, now that plant, which was going to actually create 9,000 jobs, they're like, we're done. We're pulling out.
And that lady is now online, like, crying.
Is she?
Like, because not only she thought at least this would be brownie points in the MAGA world, but Trump had to apologize, and he was begging these workers to stay, begging them. And Korea said no.
Because they had a deal with Korea.
And they had visas. The story was, and this is something for Latinos, which I mentioned before, this is how we keep getting used. That lady used a Spanish-speaking union worker to infiltrate and find out who there was working, you know, unauthorized. And ICE went in there to pick up 4 Latinos. And when they realized, oh, this factory is full of Koreans, we hit the jackpot. They were using us to raid the place. And then they thought they hit the jackpot when they found all those Koreans. And that's when, like, that's why the government got them out. They're like, all our people have visas. You guys messed up. You listened to this one lady file a report, and look what it got you.
This is also what happens when you have an entire agency that has no rules.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They just go in there and do what they want, which brings us to our next topic, because, and I felt like, this would actually, be near and dear to you. ICE is abducting students from high schools here in New York City, y'all. And I want to play for you this video of the Brooklyn public city advocate, Jumaine Williams, who, by the way, is from Grenada. Take a listen.
Taking children now and high school students.
I really don't know how we're going to start the school year not having Mukhtar with us and with the fear of somebody else being abducted by ICE.
Mukhtar started at our school in September. Really nice young man, really polite young man, and a really hardworking young student. The newcomers really just appreciate the chance for an education. In a special way, they've really made the school sort of an incredible place to work.
This is not the first New York City public school student who has been taken. They're going after ordinary people trying to navigate their life here. He is someone who has followed the process.
He got a next court date from the judge, and the ICE agents who abducted him, who kept him in inhumane conditions at 26 Federal Plaza, who have shipped him to Pennsylvania, are willing to move our country toward lawlessness, toward authoritarianism.
This young man should be going to high school in a few weeks.
Mukhtar, we miss you. We want you to be back at school. I've seen a dozen teachers here, and we are thinking of you, and we are working and doing what we can. But we look forward to having you at school as soon as possible.
Talk to me.
It breaks my heart because I was that kid. I grew up an immigrant, working, my family working to get a status during that time, and going to those interviews as a kid. The world was never perfect when you're a kid. Sometimes you try to make it better than it is, but at least I remember growing up in New York City that I felt protected. That regardless of my status, I was still able to go to school.
What made you feel protected?
I was a kid, I was a child, but it was also being able to go to school. Like, I went to a public school that, wasn't the best, but it was better than what I came from. And I realized that, and I threw myself into my studies. I was a very smart kid from a jump.
You better flex on us. You better flex on us.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted, y'all. I was very smart.
No, this is something actually I pride myself in. So when I get to the United States, my family goes, do you want to take ESL classes, English and Spanish, or do you want to take all English classes? And I was 6 years old, and I go, well, I'm here to learn English, so put me in English classes. And my sister chose ESL, nothing against her. My family goes, in 2 weeks, you were speaking English so well, you were making phone calls for us. And then from then on, whenever new kids from DR will come to the United States, all the parents will be like, you're not taking ESL classes. You're doing it like Che. He took English and he learned English in 2 weeks.
Not you messed it up. There's always an overachieving immigrant child messing it up for everybody else.
So that's what it was. I threw myself into studies. I was able to get health insurance in New York City, regardless. So, I felt like that was on my side. When I went to my hearings, it wasn't this kind of fear. Like, I knew that my family was, trying to go through the system and stuff like that.
Right.
So the fact that, like, I'm watching these kids just be brought to this country, and there's a sense that some parents still think that this is normal, that maybe it's being blown out of proportion or whatever. And they're finding the reality that the kids are not getting how fortunate I was to actually be able to grow up and, get an education and give back to the community. I've given back way more, I promise you. I've given back in taxes and stuff like that, way more.
Of course.
And, you know what I mean? So
can you explain more to that? Like, why? Because I don't think people understand that essentially, if you are an immigrant that comes to this country and you are trying to get status, you live as if you are a member of this country, but you don't have any legislative representation because you cannot vote. Is that correct?
Yeah. And essentially, like, people will be like, well, you went to public school when, maybe your status wasn't, up to par at that point. I was like, yeah, but we rented a home in the local community. So we paid the landlord and the landlord paid taxes. So we went to our local public schools. My family have always paid taxes. I got health insurance through whatever, but at 18, I became a nursing assistant. I did it during the pandemic. Like, I risked my life. I didn't get sick like that. I got flu shots. I got rubella shots, and one time I thought maybe I had cancer and I got a checkup. Turned out they were wrong. That's it. But that's like the most, like, but I'm glad that at 17 I was able to get that screening and they knew that I was fine. So that was like the most I've ever spent, like used healthcare. And then after that, from 18 on, paying my own taxes, working, contributing to my community, working as a nursing assistant during the pandemic. The way you villainize these kids is so horrible because they're just trying to get an education. They're just trying to figure themselves out. And I promise you, more times than not, these kids grow up to just be amazing people who give back to this country. There's stats that go, I think for every dollar you spend on an immigrant, they give back 100. So it's like, it's insane how much they give back. And this country they're ruining themselves by not realizing how much beauty there is in the people that come here and want to be better. They come here to want to be better, and you're robbing them of all that, especially these kids. And that's why, like, going after kids like this is just so mean. Seeing ICE leaving kids on the side of the road when they take their parents is so mean. Seeing them taking kids when they go to their court hearing is so evil.
Just really speaks to the evilness, right? Like, I don't understand how you can be completely devoid of just basic humanity in this way.
And you know, and it's a Black immigrant, you know what I mean? A lot of erasure in that too, where, you know, they treat Black immigrants, they treat, you know, trans immigrants like just horrible. Like, if you think Latinos are being treated bad, these stories are barely told because, you know, it's another erasure of like the Black community and the immigrant community.
Well, speaking of the Black community, you're really helping with these segues, by the way. If it's intentional, this speaks to, I was really good in school. I was really good in school. So y'all, we have to talk about Trey Reed, the young man who was found hanging from a tree on campus at the Delta State University in Mississippi. And I think one of the things that's come out of this that a lot of people are really like mind blown by is the immediacy for the police department to say there's been no signs of foul play. And they had a Black police officer say that. And in addition to this, though, and we'll talk about this later because our critical thinking exercise is around what is the power of media to influence the actions of its people, right? There's a song that was put out by somebody who calls themselves the mayor of MAGA. And in this song, this person refers to lynching. And he literally, I forgot the guy's, his name is Forgiato Blow. And literally in the song, he's talking about a sundown town and how y'all better get out because we've got the rope to rope you up. And this is fine. So, you know, I'm trying to navigate because the emotions that come out of this, I feel are exactly what is being intended to try to start an even bigger like onslaught of violence.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't play it because I actually played it. Like I watched some of it and I became nauseous. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, and that's the kind of reaction they want from you. They want to like, you know, give you this
rage bait.
Yeah. And I was like, I felt nauseous and horrible song. And I do have to point out something because you mentioned this in the beginning when you were like, oh, you know, maybe there's Latinos who think like, oh, well, this is a Black problem or whatever. It's not my problem. And we need to stop right there because this song is about lynching. And in it, they reference 3 white people who were murdered by Black or Latinos. So when they're talking about lynching, they're talking about lynching anybody who's not for MAGA. Of course, Black people being predominantly the people who face this kind of violence. But this song was about anybody who's against us, Latino, Black, against you. This will happen to you. And you need to be reminded that since the Civil War to the 50s and 60s, thousands of people were lynched, mostly Black people, but there were also Mexican Americans. There were also white people who stood with the cause who were lynched. So anybody who says again that this isn't my problem, that this song is just whatever, or it might just be referencing, no, it's referencing anybody who's against MAGA, and they should take it that way.
Nia in the comments said something that's what I was insinuating, that the goal is to enact enough violence where the administration can call for martial law, and then they will not have to have elections. They will essentially be put in the place of a dictatorship. And that to me is something that a lot of Americans, I don't think, can consider like a real thing. I think it's just kind of like we're still seeing people, even because I think that the idea of Black violence, no matter what version it is still for a lot of Americans, a lot of USians, I should say, this like expected thing. The same way that they're like, yeah, of course immigrants are illegal. Like that it's like guilty until proven innocent versus what they think of themselves. And so they also apply that to the United States. Like the United States government for a lot of these folks is innocent until proven guilty. And I'm just like, you need to be applying the reverse, because these people are not your friends.
And again, it's because this government has mostly protected white people, the white racists or whatever, and they feel like it's not coming for them. They still feel like it's not coming for them. And if anything that we learned from last week is that these MAGA people have their own civil war going on that they're not even acknowledging, and they're blaming us for it. They're blaming us for it. That's where the violence. I learned
about the word groiper. I've never heard this word before.
I learned so much on the internet that made me sad. That I don't even know. Maybe off air we could talk about some of this stuff. Okay. But I'm like, I didn't even know there was side of fascism that involved LGBTQ members. That I'm like, what?
Really?
That I'm like, well, I'm an ally, but not if y'all moving to fascism. No, not I'm saying
right.
The deep parts of the internet have alt-right people who, I'll tell you if I forget it. It's called Transmaxer. I went down a very deep rabbit hole.
Transmaxer?
I'm not trying to bring any conspiracy theories. I looked up a lot into this.
Wait. We don't believe in conspiracy theories here. We believe in searching for the truth, which requires theorizing what conspiracy lies beneath.
Yeah. And just before I go any further, I'm a big advocate of LGBTQ community. Like,
you don't have to do all that.
But I just want you to know because like it's apparently this. I don't know all the ideologies behind it, but essentially these incels, far right, alt, deep in the internet, they hate women so much. They can't talk to women. A lot of them are neurodivergent, but they're not diagnosed, but they're falling to the far right. So they have relationships with men that are not gay, but they can have them because it's within the confines of like, we just experimented because like we can't trust women, so we gotta like be with each other. Sometimes transitioning just so they can like sort of like be with each other, and they believe like that they know what it's like to be a woman, and a woman is a submissive, hand-tie looking woman who just says yes to everything. And it's a world where femboys and trans have met fascism deep into the internet, and it's just so heartbreaking of everything that's happening. And it's just how it was just heartbreaking to hear that, like, dang, dude, like it's crazy, the fascism and the trans that have merged in this deep world. And it's just it still boggles my mind when I read about it.
My mind is like boggled. Yeah, I'm in boggle mind mode right now.
This was crazy because the fascism is it's so in everything that there's even deeper worlds that it's infiltrated that we're not even like, because we're surface, and they're deep internet with these ideologies that allow all these things that people on the left like. We want to be able to be openly gay, and if somebody wants to transition, they should be allowed to, and as long as the person understands who they are. But no, these fascists are like, no, we're doing it out of spite, and it's just like, wait, what is happening?
I mean, that's a level of mental gymnastics that I genuinely didn't know existed.
Exactly.
Wow.
Transmaxers are fascist trans people. You should look it up. They have a manifesto. Only men can do it, women, because they also believe that women have it easier in society. So by transitioning, they don't have to work like 70-hour work weeks. It's all it's this hatred towards women where they believe they can do it better.
The first thing that the Third Reich did was to burn all the studies that were being done on trans people.
Wow.
because there was actually like active work being done on trans folks, like in a positive way, to my knowledge. And that was the first thing they did. They actually came for the trans folks first.
Yeah, that's and
And then the communists.
Yeah.
Man. Well, where can we see you tell some jokes?
Well, you can follow me at Che Guerrero ENG. We're mixed people. We're like politics, and then we got to joke about it. So
Somebody said like I saw a comic, a Mexican comic. Was he Mexican? I think he was, but he told a joke where he was like, I saw there was a joke. He was like, when Eddie Murphy saw Chris Rock for the first time, he was a young guy and he said, man, this guy's really going to make it. So he made a call. He called an agent. Next thing you know, Chris Rock was signed to CAA and he was on his way. He was like, I want to be that kind of leader too. And so I saw this Mexican comic and he was really amazing and he was doing his thing. And I said, wow, that guy, he's really going to go to the top. So I called an agent and he was taken away by ICE because I can't have that kind of competition. See?
That is the damn. Unfortunately, I hate that joke, but that joke is true though. I hate, but it's true. Oh
Someone
my
said
God.
too soon. I was like, there's no such thing for a comic. It's literally like who can get to the joke first.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, Che, tell people again where they can find you.
Yeah, follow me at Che Guerrero ENG on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Substack now. And I'll be putting dates up soon of, when I'm performing. So you can check all that out there. Thank you so much for really having me. It's always fun to talk to you.
Always a blast. And keep doing what you're doing because the fact that you do the bilingual stories and, I think that's like super duper special and important. And make sure you all go and follow Che on the Instagrams and check him out when he is in a city near you telling the jokes.
Bye, everybody. Bye, world.
Yes, y'all, we are here at Views from AmandaLand. I actually have to multitask really quick. So I want you all to talk amongst yourselves while I go check something. The question that I want you all to talk about is actually, you know what? You can watch this video real quick while I run and do this. This is what it is when you are just really building from the ground up. But we at 11:30, someone said he makes me want a husband. Y'all are so funny. I'll be right back. What's the biggest misconception that you feel people have about the Black future?
It's a really important question, but from my point of view, it's that I think it's wrong to be rooted in hopelessness. I think that when I talk to people like you, when I talk to my peers that I like, I feel like a ton of hope. I know that things can improve maybe more than we could ever believe. So I think hopelessness is kind of a mistake.
What's one thing you said in this episode that you would stand 10 toes down on?
A ghost story is a realism story. It's all real. It's all true. When you're writing, if it could be there could be monsters and dragons and ghosts, or you could be writing about being in a cubicle or waiting in line at the DMV. Either way, you have to make it real for the reader. So it's all realism to me.
This week's episode of Small Doses Podcast with Nana Kwame Adjebrenya. And you can check out his book. The video paused. No, I think it just ended. The biggest misconception that you feel people have about the Black future?
It's a really important question, but from my point of view, it's that I think it's wrong to be rooted in hopelessness. I think that when I talk to people like you, when I talk to my peers that I like, I feel like a ton of hope. I know that things can improve maybe more than we could ever believe. So I think hopelessness is kind of a mistake.
What's one thing you said in this episode that you would stand 10 toes down on?
A ghost story is a realism story. It's all real. It's all true. When you're writing, if it could be there could be monsters and dragons and ghosts, or you could be writing about being in a cubicle or waiting in line at the DMV. Either way, you have to make it real for the reader. So it's all realism to me.
Yeah. It ended. That's what happened. So welcome to Views from AmandaLand. It's the 11 o'clock hour. Hey. So let's get into some Blackurated news. How about that? You ready? Blackurated news. Politics. Blackurated news. Pop. Culture. Blackurated news. Sports. Blackurated news. Justice. So let's get into some Blackurated news. I want to shout out the people at Free DC. Because they really are making great content that is helping people in DC and that can help you all, wherever you are, to know how to fight what is taking place with this Trump man. So first of all, let me just say this. There have been a number of bills that were passed this week in DC for the purpose of basically shutting down DC and making it more and more controlled by Donald Trump. And you would think that Democrats in Congress would vote no on this, right? HR 4922, DC not having the power to determine its own sentencing. HR 5140, 14-year-olds should not be tried as adults, but that was what was being up there. HR 5125, because DC should have a say in our judicial appointments. HR 5143, high-speed chases in residential neighborhoods are dangerous. These are just a few of the House resolutions that were on the floor. And do you all know that these flipping Democrats, 25 Democrats went along with this? 25. I'm just trying to figure out, like, when do you all who seem to continue to go along with these Democrats, when do you all actually understand what's going on? Actually, I stand corrected. It was 31 Democrats. 31 Democrats. 31. 31 Democrats voted with Trump. 31 Democrats. This is your elected officials selling out you. And when they absolutely said, when Muriel Bowser went along with this and people were like, she has no power, she has no power. What's your excuse for this? What's your excuse for this? Because I don't get it. And at some point, they have to be held accountable. Now, Free DC says, listen, we are going to not take this lying down. So here's what they are talking to people about doing on the ground. So they say, DC, here's what we're going to do. In the wake of Trump's announcement that he is taking control of the Maryland Police Department and deploying the National Guard, we're going to do this. First, remember what works. In our campaign orientations, we go over strategies that have worked for other movements throughout history. Do not obey in advance. Prioritize joy. Take up space. Be in solidarity. organize. And those are all still guiding principles. And I agree with all of those. You know, I think that there's a lot of folks that may say, yes, we need to do that in addition to other things. And I agree with that too. Okay. So it's not like there's not a one size fits all situation for this. Okay. Next, hold on. Get visible. So Free DC, they want to put pictures everywhere. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people may feel like, how's that going to help? And listen, it's not always about impactful force against the oppressor. It's also about empowering your fellow community to stand up. So you might have people in your community that just don't have the courage or may not feel like this is their problem. But when it's in their face all the time, they can't run from it. Okay? They can't. And it is really something that you can do that, again, may not feel like it's a lot, but it is. So they also say, build with us. No single event or protest will fix this situation. And that is why it is so annoying to me when people talk about the election, because they act like it's just like this one single thing was going to fix everything, which is not possible. One single event is not going to fix this situation. They said starting tonight by getting visible, getting loud, or joining orientation. And you can go to their events. You can go to their events and learn more at freeproject.org. Okay. /events. You can get cop watch training. You can get, I think they do, what's it called? Not just cop watch training. I think they also do court watching, etc. So these are some tactics that are being deployed by organizers who do this work. And I want you guys to really don't feel like you are completely helpless just because you don't have the ideas. There are people who spend every day having the ideas. That's like their thing. That's what organizing is about. This is the type of work that we're going to be delving into at the summit this weekend. So I hope that you guys will be there, whether in physical form or live stream, so that you can also get more of this information. Cracking up the system, we have two long-term organizers, Gloria de la Cruz and Angelica Langdon, who will be joined by two comics who are very much a part of activism work and organizing work. And Christina Brown and Davidson Boswell, if you've watched any of their content, you know that they stand 10 toes down, right? So bringing them together to have these conversations around spaces that oftentimes can feel really didactic and really depressing, but injecting them with joy, injecting them with humor is something that I think is really, really pertinent and important, because I really believe our spirit has to be engaged in this work in a different way than it has been in the past. And I want to talk about also seeing spirit engaged in the work. Now, what's going on in Nepal did not start overnight. It didn't start overnight. Now, in March, this young man delivered this speech at his school in Nepal. And I want you to listen, because baby, the baby was talking.
Today I stand here with the dream of building a new Nepal, with a fire of hope and passion burning within me. But my heart is heavy, because this dream seems to be slipping away. Rise and shines, futures of this upcoming imperial empire. I, Oscar Raut, the head boy of this everlasting imperial institute, Holy Bell English Secondary School, welcomes you with open arms to our 24th annual program. I put myself before you this moment to shed light within your consciousness by piercing the dark nimbus that circles above you.
Okay. Okay. Listen, Daljit Soni says right here, they've been organizing for decades and throughout the monarchy only 20 years ago. This is what I talk about with the civil rights movement. Y'all think the civil rights movement started in the 60s. The civil rights movement started immediately after after Abraham Lincoln was murdered and Andrew Johnson said, let's run back everything that we said we were going to do. And the Supreme Court said, hey, states, you can actually do whatever you want to do. Now, I am hearing that this particular uprising is being manufactured by the U.S., but I'm not hearing it from any legitimate sources. Like, I think that's just been injected into the internet, and I have not seen it by anybody that I can actually vouch for. And what I want us to remember is that this internet has incels, right? The internet on a regular basis has thought processes injected that people then latch onto. So you always have to remember that concept, because whenever you see stuff like that, you're like, well, okay, but to what end, right? And to what goal? And I need to see that. Like, I can't just see, oh, the U.S. is the ones who did this. Okay, but why? Help me understand why. Because I need to know. And again, I'm not even saying that it isn't the case, because I don't know to say that it's not. But what I am saying is that I don't take statements like that just bar none and keep going. So, that's something that I would need to look further into. And there's something that I would like to, and I would like to get that from like somebody who really is on the ground in Nepal, right? Because I think that that's the other part of it too, is that like we're getting stuff a lot of times like secondhand news, which brings us to what we have to discuss, which is that water is wet, AKA that the UN decided that Israel is committing genocide. No shit, Sherlocks. No shit, Sherlocks. A new report by a United Nations Commission of Inquiry says Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. And I want you to know that Gazans has been saying this for 2 years now. They have concluded that 4 of the 5 genocidal acts defined under international law have been carried out since the start of the war with Hamas in 2023. Again, it was the regular scenario of we're going to do genocide, and then people going, but we can't do anything until they do it. Which is like when you're trying to tell people, I'm being threatened, cops. I'm being threatened by this person. They said they're going to kill me. And they're like, well, we can't really do anything unless they actually try to kill you. So make sure you can run. So the 4 out of 5 genocidal criteria that they're saying that Israel meets are: 1, killing members of a group, you think, causing them serious bodily and mental harm. Is that right? Deliberately inflicting conditions calculated to destroy the group. You don't say. And preventing births. Now, Fatima says the UN is freaking useless. Well, let's remember why the UN was started and who started it. The UN was started post-World War II by the Allied nations, right? And they essentially started it to be a little squad to run the world. That's why there's a Security Council. It's basically Mean Girls in a lunchroom. Like, yeah, like you guys are here, but like we're the ones running the show. You know what I mean? Now, this UN commission cites statements by Israeli leaders and the pattern of conduct by Israeli forces as evidence of genocidal intent. Now, for the record, if the world was really bad about it, they would leave the United Nations. That's what should be happening, in my opinion. That's what the nations who are in the United Nations who are like, this is some BS, should be doing. Should be getting out and starting their own joint. I mean, I was about to say something really ridiculous, but for the sake of jokes, I will do this. Listen, in high school, I wanted to be a part of the group musical Hello 12, Hello 13 that was being put together by Corey, who is now a Zionist, and they did not pick me. And I was a junior, and I could not believe that they did not pick me. We were all friends. And when I asked Corey, like, how did I not get cast? He said, Amanda, it's not about friendship. It's about talent. And I was like, wow. And so I licked my wounds. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to do my own group musical, which was unheard of for a junior. And I'm just using this as a framework, okay? I'm just using this as a framework because the seniors are the ones who have all of the power, the ones who have all of the clout, the ones who have all of the leverage in the program. You know, they were the ones running the show. As a junior, you're like not there yet. I mean, you cool, you're upperclassman, but you're not there yet. So it was unheard of for me to think that I could go and do a group musical. And then I did. Now, the first try was a fail, but before we even got to the competition, I figured that out. And I ended up deciding to do Cell Block Tango. And your girl won. Listen, I got all the rejects. None of us who got picked for that group musical, I got us all together. And we actually won. They had it coming. They had it coming. They only had themselves to blame. If you'd have been there, if you'd seen it, I bet you would have done the same. Our guests are coming on. I know that they're like, what am I stepping into? You're stepping into delightfulness. That's what you're stepping into. Okay. But let me just tell you, these member states of the UN who are constantly being treated as second-class members of the United Nations, who, even though these are countries that are constantly having their resources stolen, that are constantly having their labor stolen, they end up being the backbone that fuels all of these economies. Look at France and how it's falling and faltering and floundering without the stealing the goods of the Sahel. These countries are actually the backbone of this global majority that is running the show. They have the power. And if they could actually get together and say, fuck y'all, then we could actually see some shifting. But the leaders, I don't know. Maybe there's more stuff that we don't know that you know, and it's like, Amanda, stop talking out your butt. But I'm just saying, on the outside looking in, it just feels like there's more that can be done. There's more that would need to be done, and that the United Nations as a body cannot do that which needs to be done because it is set up to not do that. It's not set up to do that. Meanwhile, 250 U.S. legislators are on a propaganda trip to Israel right now. Yeah, they're all there just hanging out. What is a propaganda trip, Amanda? A propaganda trip is basically when they have these legislators, and they're not just electoral legislators, they're not just Congress members, they are also on local levels and state levels. They are able to go to Israel for free. And basically Israel is telling them like, hey, come through, hang out with us in Tel Aviv because we're going to fund your campaigns. And in return, you are going to do what we ask you to do when we are looking for lobbying. And we want you to do anything of our ask. I mean, it's literally, they're calling it a propaganda trip. And I think even that is generous because it's really a mafia trip. For all intents and purposes, because once you sign on, you don't get to say no. Like that's what it is. Now, mind you, I was actually really surprised about this, but a particular senator said, not me. Ohio State Senator Beth Liston actually decided not to go. They literally, she rescinded her desire to go because people in her constituency was pressing her. And Beth realized, hold up. I'm the propaganda. The trip isn't the propaganda. I'm the propaganda. You better go, Beth. But actually, you know what? I take that back. You better go, Beth's constituents, because they was up in there. They was up in there. And yes, they definitely used Louis Armstrong. They used Louis Armstrong in more than one occasion, all right? Because if you watch Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, they was using all those jazz musicians as a cover to do concerts on the motherland while the CIA was carrying out their acts of BS. That's a real thing that happened. Like literally, they talk about, and they're laughing because they're evil, but they're literally talking about how they were backstage at a Louis Armstrong concert. Like, oh, you here to murk Lumumba too? Oh man, I'm here to murk Lumumba. Man, we both here to murk Lumumba. Let's go have a drink. Rest in peace to Patrice Lumumba. So we're waiting for one more of our guests to join. And before we do that, I want to play you all this video because, again, I have to remind you that what's happening in Gaza as we are watching the continued onslaught and now a ground invasion of Gaza, because they have now cleared people out of Gaza City. All right. They're clearing people out of Gaza City because they are sending them into the Al-Mawasi desert where there is nothing. There is no infrastructure. There's literally nothing. You also just saw Israel dropping shells on Qatar, which, by the way, is pronounced Qatar. It's not pronounced Qatar. I had an American tell me I pronounced it incorrectly. I'm like, no, you're an American, so you're pronouncing it Qatar. It's Qatar, and I think I'm trying to get that because it's Arabic. But I'm sure Ahmed will give me the correct pronunciation. So, long story short, though, these folks have been negotiating with Qatar. And by the way, the people, the Qatari government is like, I mean, we thought that they were civilized. Why? Why did you think they were civilized? What part of these people has been indicated that they are civilized? Nonetheless, they absolutely did not know that they was going to bomb them. There's a giant U.S. military base in Qatar. So I don't know why they did this in the first place. And they did not bomb a military space. They actually dropped shells in a very, what's the word I'm looking for? In a very residential, like busy area. Now you have Egypt like, now hold up. Okay, now you're doing too much. Now you're doing too much because you was supposed to be cool with us, but there is no honor amongst thieves. And it is a constant confusion to me that anyone of this world is trusting colonialists, is trusting imperialists. And whenever I see non-white people be like, we're down, I'm always confused because it was just the other day that they was over there jacking your people. That's what they were doing. You're not next in line to be a part of the white supremacist bounty. Hate to break it to you. Okay? You're not. And they're finding that out in real time. So we'll see what happens with that. But in the meantime, in between time, I want to play you this video to get caught up on not only what's happening right now in Gaza, but how Israelis are talking about it. Because that's the part that I think we're missing. And I want to make sure that you know that this is not just like one or two people. This is the sentiment, okay? This is how they think about things. Of course, you know what's frustrating, you guys? It's frustrating when I make like a whole thing of content and I get it together and then I think I've got it together and then I don't. I don't have it together. I thought I had it together and I didn't have it together. And so now I have to sit here and make you guys wait for me to get it together. I don't like that. I don't like that. All right, we're about to get into our next interview, but first I want you all to check this out.
Care about children. When you see the picture, are you guys seeing it? Because
50% at least of the pictures are, how do they call it? Gaza wood.
People enjoy knowing that they are suffering. If you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second.
You can't help but think, like, it's nice to know that you're dancing in a concert whilst hundreds of thousands of Gazans are,
homeless,
like sitting in a tent and eating.
Makes it even better.
Yeah,
more enjoyable concert.
احكي اللي بقلبك كله يا حجاله اللي وين العالم يا الله وين الدول العربيه يجي يتفرج علينا يا الله حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل فيهم حسبي الله.
Do you see where they're going? Last night in Gaza City, heading down the one road that would take them to Al-Mawasi. 23 kilometers, 14 miles. 1 million people are making their trek to Al-Mawasi, where they will not find a place, they will not find a hospital, they will not find shelter, but they are told to go.
There are so many excuses that our government is giving us, or that the powers that be give us, to absolve ourselves of responsibility. The fact that the international community enabled this for the last almost 2 years is one of the reasons why vast parts of Gaza look like a wasteland now, why so many human beings have been killed. We have failed as Israelis who are opposed to this to stop it, and I think Israelis will forever have to reckon with what we have done to Palestinians in Gaza.
So before I bring our guests up, I just want to address something that someone said in the comments. They said, I watched the first video yesterday and the girl said she felt bad. And who cares if she felt bad? She also said that 50%, and then later on says, actually, if I'm being more generous, it's actually more 80% that are fake videos. This is not really happening. And I do feel bad for the Israelis, but this is happening because of So, miss me, please. Y'all love to look, I call it nuance of convenience. Was that valid to you? That she felt bad? Why? Why was that valid to you? We're going to get into our guests. I told y'all that we are going to the motherland. Now, later in the show, I want to remind you, though, that the fight for Palestine is not done, that people are actively working and moving and in movement. So we will get into that after our segment, our level up segment that is about to happen right now. AmandaLand. Ahmed, are you wearing sunglasses inside? Are you a podcast bro?
No, they're glasses that if the sun hits them, they turn a shade, and I've got a window. Yeah.
I
could take them off. Let me take them off, so I don't look like Young Jeezy.
You did
Young
look
Jeezy
like
in the club.
Hey, it is so wonderful to meet all of you, and I am so glad that we are able to make this happen. Also, this is really impressive because I feel like there's a lot of time zones here, and we all made it possible to link up. Now, Clinton, your mic is muted, so I'm going to unmute you. But you have to unmute your mic. Okay, there you go. So this vision came out of, I was interviewing Ahmed about the madness that went down with African Stream. And he was like, I've got just connection to such incredible journalists that really are ready and that should be continuing their work. And so I'm really appreciative that you all are looking to help us understand and connect. You know, there's a lot of rhetoric that is spread across this internet in particular that seeks to separate the Black diaspora. There's a lot of effort that seeks to send this message that folks on the continent, they don't like Americans and Black Americans don't like. And it's like, well, there's people that don't like people everywhere. That doesn't have to be the sentiment, though, that we prioritize. And I think one of the best ways to challenge this is information and connectivity and understanding others' experiences. So without further ado, each of you, I'd love for you to introduce yourselves and where you are located, because for those of y'all who weren't here in the beginning, what's going to be happening moving forward is that once a month, one of these lovely individuals will be joining us to give us an Africa tap in and give us basically the 60-second headlines of the continent. So let's start with you, Ahmed.
Sure. So my name is Ahmed Kaballo. I describe myself as a Sudanese born in the UK. I am the former founder of African Stream, where I met the wonderful guests that are joining the stream today. I'm based in Nairobi with Clinton and William, and it's currently 6:40 p.m. in Nairobi.
Nice. I don't want to mispronounce your name, Miss Richardson, so teach me.
Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Inem Richardson. I'm super happy to be on here. I split my time between Burkina Faso and Niger. I am a journalist with African Stream. I've covered all sorts of different things, but really a lot of stuff related to the Alliance of Sahel states. I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm a product of the Nigerian diaspora, but I have had the incredible opportunity to be in the Sahel for the past 4 years and to see the rise of the Alliance of Sahel states firsthand. I'm also the co-founder of the Thomas Sankara Center, aka Burkina Books. If you want to check us out on Instagram, we are bringing revolutionary Pan-African materials into the Sahel. It's a lending library political education center. And I'm a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, AAPRP.
My cat's name is Thomas Sankara.
Awesome.
Well, actually, Palmas Sankara. So it's Palmas
Aww,
Sankara.
even better. It's so cute.
And my other kitten's name is Patrice Lumumba. But no big deal. William.
My name is William Sakawa. Very, very honored to be here, Miss Amanda.
Thank you.
I describe myself as a socialist, as a journalist. I believe that, as many people do, Africa has problems. Africa has very big problems. And a big part of understanding how to change it is knowing the story, knowing what happened, just basically having context. And so, yeah, I think our work is very useful to that and to revealing the hidden, what basically the status quo doesn't want to be known. But yeah, to keep it short, I'm an African, very passionate about liberating Africa.
And are you from Kenya?
Yes, I'm from Kenya.
Jumbo. Actually, I did get these in Nairobi. By the way, yeah, I'm giving you, I was like, I know who's coming on the show today. So this is my, what brand is this? This is, damn, I'm blanking, but it's from South Africa. All right, Clinton.
Yeah, my name is Clinton Nzala. I am a Zambian, but currently living in Nairobi. I was one of the journalists at African Stream. I'm a very passionate Pan-African. I'm a firm believer that the starting step for Africa to move forward will be uniting the continent, as I believe that most of our problems can be solved by us uniting and working together as one people on the continent and in their diaspora.
Quick. All right. By the way, it's Mexclos. I can never get that. Mexclosa. There it is. Mexclosa. By Laduma. So it's so great to have you all here. So let's jump into it. I mean, what do you feel is happening on the continent that we need to know about? Especially, I would love to hear, particularly from you, Inem, about Burkina Faso, because someone told me that they felt like, a Senegalese told me that they felt like the stories around Burkina Faso, around just the movement is being portrayed in a glossy way that's not really honest. And so I would love to know your thoughts on Ibrahim Traore, and as somebody who's on the ground, the truth behind that, etc. So, but in general, I want to hear from you guys from, where you all are in the world and what is actually headlining where you all are.
Okay, cool. So I'll jump in to talk about, Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traore, and also the Alliance of Sahel states at large. And, I feel a lot of pressure anytime I talk about this, because it's really hard to capture just the tremendous transformations that I've been able to witness over the past 4 years. And I understand that, like, for some people from the outside who maybe come into Burkina Faso after seeing, these images on social media, they're like, oh, like, this is it. But you have to really understand, like, from the people's perspective, how incredible these transformations are. We're talking about one of the most super exploited regions on the planet Earth, and also one of the most, up until recently, militarized parts of Africa. We're talking about not just Burkina Faso, which I know it gets the most attention, but we're talking about 3 countries that have come together to form a Pan-African project at the hands and the calls and demands of the peoples on the grassroots level. We are seeing an incredibly rapid process of industrialization in Burkina Faso. And what I mean by that is, I'm not talking about like bullet trains or flying cars and stuff like this, because I know I get like images sent to me. I'm talking about like people being able to control their food source for the first time. I'm talking about control over local production. I'm talking about a diversification of the economy that's happening not just in the capital where I live, but all across the country. So there is, for example, a new dairy factory in my own neighborhood, but it's a part of a series of 5 different dairy factories that are happening, not just in the capital, but also in very remote and rural areas. There's wheat mills that are being created. There's a tomato paste factory that was inaugurated. There's cashew fruit production factories that are being created. They are refining gold in-house for the first time. They're working to develop nuclear power. These are things that I think from a U.S. perspective, we kind of take for granted, like, oh, yeah, like you guys have like a dairy factory, what's the big deal? But you have to understand, like, we're talking about a part of the world that has been so exploited that, according to the, I don't like the World Bank, but I apologize, I have to quote their statistic real quick. Like, according to the World Bank, this is a region where about 95% of people do not have any access to electricity. I don't mean like power cuts, I mean zero access. So, these are big changes for people. And it's farmers who are also being impacted by this the most. These are people that maybe we don't hear from as much. They tend to not speak French. They speak the local languages. And so they have like a harder time communicating with an international audience. But I've seen videos of people like crying tears of joy. And, they're saying things like, this is the best yield I've had of my entire life. I've never had this level of, of crop production. These are, again, I think if you live in the US, it's like, okay, what's the big deal? We go into the store, we don't necessarily know where our food is coming from.
Facts.
But it's a huge deal for the people. And they overwhelmingly support President Traore, but the 3 presidents as well. All 3 of them. It's not just about Burkina, it's about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, who are coming together to fight for African unification and the liberation of African people everywhere. I mean, the diaspora is playing a role, and people are keenly aware of the importance of the diaspora. They really have a very heightened Pan-African political consciousness.
Now, you guys remember to ask your questions. You know that I expect you to be polite and respectful, and you know that includes addressing folks as Mr. and Miss. All right? Okay, class. William, folks said that they could not hear you as well as they would like to, so I'm not sure where your mic is, but if you could just maybe like hold it up, because we got to hear what y'all got to say. So anything, actually, since we're talking to William, school us, put us on. What's popping?
Nothing much in East Africa, but just speaking to the context of what Inem said. Is my mic okay now?
Yes, fabulous.
Okay. Just speaking to what Inem said in terms of the Sahel, basically breaking the chains of neocolonialism and reclaiming their sovereignty and what this means to them. I think it's also important to note that the empire will not just go quietly into the night. While it's moving away from the Sahel, we've seen Senegal, Burkina Faso, Mali, all these other countries sort of reduce the presence of Western forces. We see the reverse happening in East Africa, where there's an additional new American base coming up. We have sort of a handover of AFRICOM operations, because at the moment the headquarters of AFRICOM is Germany, but the idea is basically to move into Kenya. And unfortunately, this is a role that Kenya has always played since colonialism. Even the independence we got was basically, as with many other African countries, a facade, basically placing puppets and basically putting a stop to revolution, putting a stop to what the people actually wanted, which was land, which was freedom, none of which we got. So Kenya has been very integral to the imperialist project as far as East Africa is concerned. And I think the more that it's losing ground in the Sahel, we're going to see a bigger and a bigger footprint in East Africa. And also to know that people like to be cynical about it. There's the argument that, yeah, the Americans will come over here, they'll open a base, we're going to get employment and all that. But what has the record been of American bases all right? This week, there is a case ongoing where the US government and the South Korean government are being sued for running sex trafficking rings. We have women who literally died from taking too much penicillin to treat their sexually transmitted diseases, which were they're basically there to service the American soldiers who are stationed in Korea. It's the same story happening in Africa. In Kenya, precisely, we have a case ongoing. There's a woman killed in 2013, Agnes Wanjiru, 21 years old, very young, hard to drop out of school. So no one looks, no one really considers this. We look at the employment, even that doesn't really matter. At the cost of losing your dignity, doesn't really add up. So yeah, we are looking at what's happening in the Sahel with admiration. We think it's a nucleus for a greater African project. We really wish them well. And it's also a call to us as East Africans to realize the fight just got a lot more serious. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Sorry to jump in. William, if you can just add about the case, the compensation case with the British Army base and the fire that they set and destroyed the crops. If you could just add that context as well.
Sure. Basically, in addition to the human rights abuses, we have their presence here poses ecological concerns. We see the COP28, COP26, all of them whining about climate. When they're here, they use banned substances like phosphorus, which set off wildfires. There's an example from 2020 or 2022. They set fire to, I'm sorry, I can't quickly think of the amount, but it was a pretty sizable amount of land. And remember, these are people who are pastoralists. They rely on the grass to graze their animals. What happens when they no longer have access to the grazing because the British Army decided to ban phosphorus? And in addition to banning phosphorus, we have stray bullets that kill people. We have mines that do not go off and maim people. But Ahmed can maybe, I haven't really gone into the compensation. I haven't seen progress on it. Perhaps he could clarify.
You're muted.
I was trying to get the figure. I remember reading it. It was a pitiful amount.
Talking about it. It was something really. It was a pittance. It kind of. If memory serves me correct, it averaged out to like $500, maybe $50.
I think
it was.
Yeah, sorry. Just remembered. It came to $200. Yeah, it averaged to $200. Yeah.
So that was the compensation that they were.
Yes.
And whenever they have to like pay compensation, how is this determined? Is this a case that is being like tried, or is it just a conversation that's being had in back rooms and then it's just kind of said in the media to quiet people?
So it's an agreement between two governments where the community is completely left out. And since Kenya relies so heavily on its close relationship with the US, whatever the UK, whatever the UK government or the British Army proposes, the Kenyan government is going to accept. So there's been protests since. People are saying this is a joke. You've ruined our land. What's 200? What can we do with $200? And this happens time and time again. We saw in Germany and Namibia, there was a compensation deal, reparations of $1.4 billion, 1.4 billion euros, but it's over 30 years and it's to be used on development projects. And
which
again,
they end up getting
exactly.
contracts to do.
Exactly. And this is all about power, and this is what we're trying to emphasize, what we were trying to emphasize on African Stream. The reason why we want to unite, it's not to say that someone in Zambia is the same as someone in Kenya, or someone in Kenya is the same as someone in Burkina Faso. It's just an understanding of where we are. As we're atomized as individual states, it's very difficult for us to hold these powerful nations to account. But when we unite and we say, these are our minerals, these are our resources, this is what unless we get reparations for the continent, unless we get atonement for the continent, then we're going to stop all trade deals. We're going to close down all British controlled mines. We're going to kick out Oppenheimer and these diamond factories and these gold factories. But you can only do that if you have strength. And the strength comes when we come together. Because otherwise what happens is, as we saw in Kenya, as we've seen in Nigeria, as we've seen throughout the continent, is that they will support campaigns of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They'll support campaigns of William Ruto, and then they'll negotiate with Tinubu, and they'll negotiate with Ruto, and they say the Kenyan people have decided this, the Nigerian government had decided this, and it's a joke. It's a joke. We did a story on African Stream in the past about the UAE and how they're exploiting carbon credits. They're buying up land in Liberia, they're buying up land in Zimbabwe, they're buying up land. And the amount of land that they're buying in Tanzania and all these places, if you put it together, it's bigger than the size of the UK. And they're using that to offset their carbon credits. And then when we described it as land grabs, people in our comments were saying, oh, but the governments have agreed to this. Like, yeah, but the governments are not sovereign.
They're not representing the people. Yeah.
They're not. Yeah, the communities have not agreed to this. We went to Liberia recently and did a 3-part documentary. The communities have not agreed to any of this stuff. So who are the governments representing? Who are they answerable to? Who are they negotiating on behalf of? And that's the biggest trick of neocolonialism. You get somebody that looks like us to negotiate and be our representative. Just to add to what William said about Korea, because it's a story that's not really got enough attention. Essentially, the reactionary forces in the south of Korea, there was an agreement made by the US. If you want us to fight the communists in the north, you need to provide our soldiers with prostitutes. Yeah, and the prostitutes obviously
that was a part of the agreement.
That was a part of the agreement, and so these women were essentially raped because there wasn't enough prostitutes. Yeah, there wasn't enough women who were doing the job to service the need of American soldiers. So what do you think happened? People were coerced, people were forced, and here we are, 60 years, 50 years down the line, they reach a settlement about this. But it's kind of hidden. Not many people know about it. Not many people understand, and they just think, oh yeah, America was fighting in Korea. To serve freedom and to fight the big bad communist. So yeah, just thought I'd add the context.
Thank you. Clinton, you are in Kenya, but you are Zambian. What do you got for us?
First of all, I'll start by saying that I think a few decades ago, being a Zambian, carrying our Zambian flag was a source of pride because our nation was known to be the home of many liberation movements in Southern Africa and across the African continent. Most of the liberation movements, if not all, had their headquarters in Lusaka in Zambia because we had a government that was very anti-colonial and apartheid, very revolutionary. It gave a home to all these liberation movements. But 5 decades later, our country has become a source of continental, regional, and national shame. At the recent vote for Palestinian statehood, we were one of the countries that did not vote for Palestinian statehood. I think in the entire Southern African region, it was only Zambia. And this does not come as a surprise. A few weeks back, Israel just reopened its embassy in Lusaka, Zambia. So you can imagine at the time when Israel is committing a genocide before the whole world, our government thinks that this is the best time to allow Israel to reopen their embassy. This is an embassy that was closed in 1973 during the October War, because the government that we had then, literally when that war started, they were like, we can't have you guys. They closed that embassy, although it came at a huge, I think, cost, because at that time, an Israeli company was building the University of Zambia. So if today you go to the University of Zambia, you're going to find buildings that up to now have not been completed. Because what happened, the Israelis, when they were kicked out of Zambia, they went away with all the plans, the building plans. They didn't even want to hand them over to the Zambian government. So we've been unable to complete those buildings because of the pettiness of the Israeli government. But then the government that we had at that time was willing to take such a huge cost out of principle. But then our current government has turned our country into a political brothel, where literally they engage with the Western governments just for maybe personal gain. So we've turned our back on our traditional allies and went into the direction of facing the West. We've opened our minds to investors from the West who are exploiting our people, getting deals that probably many, many generations down the line will still be paying for that. But I think that just us enhancing our relations or deepening our relations with a genocidal regime has been, I think it's a source of shame. It's a source of embarrassment that at this moment is shameful to be in any political circle and to say that you're a Zambian, because almost everyone is wondering that what's going on.
But what did happen? Like, when was the turn? When was the flip?
So I think the flip happened in the 1990s. So the government that we had, the government that ended relations with Israel, the government that supported all these liberation movements, lost elections in 1991.
But did they really lose?
Yeah, actually, I was going to go to that point. Okay. Many people have questioned highly about how that election, of course, there were a few local issues that could have made that government to become unpopular. But the extent that the loss, like the gap that between the party that won and the government that lost, was very significant to arouse some suspicions that the numbers could have been cooked in favor of a more Western aligned government that took over in 1991. So even that government, as much as it was, it kind of ended the kind of Cold War with Israel, but they were decent enough not to allow Israel to open an embassy. So most of the business was handled through the embassy here in Kenya, but they could not allow Israel to open an embassy. Then that party was in power until 2011, when we had a change of government. A new party came into power, and that party was also very transactional. It was a party where, when they were in China, they were the most committed communists. When they were in the US, they were the most committed capitalists. And in 2015, they kind of renegotiated the status of our relationship with Israel. So in 2015, we opened an embassy in Tel Aviv, which was widely condemned. So after that pushback, they had some reservations about allowing Israel to open an embassy in Zambia, mostly because of that feedback that they got from the people after it was discovered that we had opened an embassy in Israel, but they didn't close the one they had opened in Tel Aviv. So those guys remained in power and lost elections in 2021. So the new government that came is on the right of the other government. It's very right-wing, if I can put it that side. It's
right-wing in Africa sounds crazy. Like, for those of us in the United States, like, that conceptually is like, how?
It is. This is a government whose closest allies in the region is the Democratic Alliance of South Africa, a party that is known to be the best for the West of the West racists in South Africa. This is a party which
the worst of the worst racists in South Africa? That's a low bar.
Yeah, this is a government that is opposed to all kinds of transformational policies, almost any policy that seeks to undo the damage that was done by centuries of colonialism and decades of apartheid. The Democratic Alliance is opposed to such policies. So it would be very strange to find an African government that finds comfort to share a political bed with a Democratic Alliance. And that's a government that we have in Zambia. But they are very lucky because on the international scene, Zambia is not seen as a big player. So I think they are not getting the smack that they deserve from the masses across Africa. So they've taken many policies that go against progressive Africans, that go against the cause of most Pan-Africanists. But they do fly under the radar because most people are not paying attention to what is happening in Zambia. But I think it's one of those governments which are very retrogressive to the Pan-African dream and literally to the goals of to the anti-imperialist goal in Africa. Because most of the times they voted at the UN, they voted alongside the US, they voted alongside the Israel. So at most times when they feel a bit of shame, they will abstain. But there's no record where in the last 4 years where they voted for a progressive resolution at the UN. For decades, we always voted to end for the lifting of the embargo on Cuba. Then in the last years, most of the times when such a vote comes up, our representative at the UN, all of a sudden, he doesn't show up for the vote.
So tell me this, you guys. All of you all are in unique positions on the continent, right? In terms of like your interests, not just necessarily your physicality, right? How does the continent itself interact with each other in terms of information? So, you know, like in Europe, I mean, there's, of course, like the European Union. So that then creates this necessity for the BBC to not just talk about like the British news. It's going to talk about world news. But I know African Stream was speaking about like information in a particular context. But outside of that, are the countries more siloed, or is there an effort to, you know, kind of cross-connect information? Anyone can answer.
I'd say it's regional. It's very
East,
dominated
West,
by
North, South, and
exactly. So people in Kenya will know about the political crackdown that's happening in Tanzania. They'll know about protesters being tried in military courts in Uganda. People in Nigeria will know about what's going on in Ghana. I would say maybe Burkina Faso, because Ghana and Burkina Faso border, but then there comes the language, you know, Francophone, Anglophone, and so there's a division there. And so there's actually many ways that people are not connected, which is why I believe, you know, in a very short time, we got so big, because there wasn't really somewhere that was continental wide talking about what was going on. People in the southern African region will know about what's going on in Zambia, Namibia, South Africa, Botswana. But I have been a bit kind of disappointed in my conversations how little, just to be honest, you know, Kenyans will know about what's going on elsewhere. William, obviously, notable exception outside of the continent. Maybe William, you could talk about why that is, because I was born in the UK, you're born in Kenya, so maybe it's something to do with the education system, or you can maybe enlighten us a little bit about why that is.
Sure. I think there's the educational system as well. But of course, all these rests on the foundation of colonialism, where the individual identities of all these 42 or something tribes within Kenya were erased, to, if I can say that, or basically erased. Then a new identity.
You're covering your mic.
Yeah, sorry. And then this new identity was basically what the British wanted to model the Kenyan people as. And since colonialism, Kenya hasn't really managed to break out of that mold of being defined by the British. We use the British education system. We currently have an education system called a competency-based curriculum, which, as far as now, it has been a complete, utter disaster. And looking deeper into it, you realize that it's not an indigenous initiative. It's not that Kenyan educators sat down and then asked themselves, what do we want to teach our children? What is the goal of education? That didn't exist. They simply maybe copied a McKinsey report on what education in the 21st century looks like, and then went on with it. So in terms of education, the Kenyan school system does not prepare or does not teach the African child what Africa is, what African history is, the role of imperialism, the role of slavery, colonialism, neocolonialism, financial institutions like the IMF. If anything, whenever they talk about these things, it's usually in glowing terms. Like, for example, The IMF has once again bailed Kenya out of a certain disaster, certain kind of framing, which of course, if you're the average Kenyan looking at a newspaper like that, you can't really look deeper into it. They've told you the IMF is good, simple as that. And again, as I said, this is from how the British basically modeled what Kenya is like. And then, of course, further into that, away from education, you also have the media landscape as well. You have local media, which focuses on local news, but even within the local news, there's an element of Western media, because from around 10, maybe midnight, usually they play maybe some CNN, some BBC till around 4 a.m. If you're like the upper liberal kind of person in Africa, you're most likely Western leaning. So in a way, the Western elite or the British elite also made sure that Kenya's elite only aspired to whitehood, only aspired to be like them. So that also includes how you look at the world, not actually acknowledging the fact that Kenya is not free at all. Because acknowledging it will mean knowing that, for example, why is it that Britain still has a military base in Kenya 60-something years after independence? Kenya does not have a military base in Britain. So what explains the difference? It also explains why, as Ahmed mentioned when he was looking at the dynamics of power, when the Agnes Wanjiru case, 21-year-old girl killed, left behind a 5-month-old baby. Since 2013 up to now, I don't think we even know who the perpetrator is, despite the suspect actually confessing on Facebook and bragging about it. And then someone posed the question, what if the roles were reversed? What if it was a Kenyan soldier who did that to an innocent British girl? Will it be acceptable? So just putting it how basically Kenya is under the thumb. We had a conversation with Mr. Nzala not too long ago, basically, that when colonialists came, the worst crime they did was take away our ability to envision something for ourselves. How we perceive ourselves is how they perceive us. So yeah, understanding why Kenya does not have the perspective on current affairs, on geopolitics, how the world works, Israel, the role of the US dollar, BRICS, all that, it all ties into how colonialism basically shaped the country.
Thank you.
Sorry, there was an update. So just yesterday, the Kenyan government has issued an arrest warrant for the British soldier. Well, what they'll do, will they make it? So the difference is these things are done, but there's nothing conditional about it. And this is where the power question comes into it. So if you issue an arrest warrant, but you put no pressure on the British government to actually arrest him and hand him over, then it's a symbolic thing. So when the election year comes about and these questions are asked, you can say, yeah, well, we issued an arrest warrant back in 2025. It's just the British didn't do anything about it. But, you're meant to be a sovereign government. There are British companies that export tea out of Kenya, coffee out of Kenya, flowers out of... So there's leverage there. My frustration is, and the frustration of many Africans is, we never see any of our governments until what's going on in the Sahel ever leverage the small bit of economic power that they have because of what's being extracted out of those countries.
You guys do not put hey in the front of your questions. Y'all, I cannot stand hey. I don't even like when I get text messages that start with hey. Hey, I'm like, what? Hey is for horses. All right. Y'all know that I am a very proper West Indian woman. So I do not want to be addressed with hey, and I do not want my guests to be addressed with hey either. Jacqueline has a question for you, Mr. William. Mr. William, are there efforts to decolonize systems in Kenya? If so, what are resources that we can look into to support these efforts, asking as a fellow Kenyan living in the U.S.?
Resistance in Kenya, there is organization in terms of providing an alternative to the current oppressive system. We have very, very many organizations. We have social justice centers. I'll maybe just mention two. Maybe just check out the Instagram or Twitter pages of Mathare Social Justice Center, Kasarani Social Justice Center. They do amazing work with the community in terms of empowering women, in terms of maybe helping women survive beyond abusive homes, taking care of children. You can also check out Usikimye. It's run by the amazing Susan Migwi. she focuses on everything. It's not just, affairs of the women, it's men affairs, it's children. Check out Usikimwe, and also check out the amazing organizing activity by the Communist Party Marxist Kenya. So that's like 5 plugs, but should be enough to get along with.
No, my properness is not colonial residue. My properness is from being a part of a community where if you don't greet someone properly, you will hear about it later. All right. That's Americans don't understand that. In Grenada, if I'm walking up the road and I don't say, afternoon, Miss So-and-so, I will hear about it when I get home later. I just want y'all to know that because y'all just have a very limited idea of how the world works. All right. Distinguished guests, NatFlow13 asks, is the awakening and movement in the Sahel from the people? We know how the West treats anti-imperialist African leaders, but the collective can keep the movement going.
I'm so glad the person asked this question because it gives me the opportunity to talk about some really important developments within the Alliance of Sahel States. So first of all, I want to clarify, everything happening in the Sahel right now, first and foremost, is a product of a mass popular people's movement. I started traveling within the region of the Sahel around 2018. And, immediately already, in 2018, I'm exposed to developing, accelerating anti-imperialist struggle against what people call there like La France Afrique, which just means French neocolonialism. They're fighting against French neocolonialism. And it started with this currency called the CFA franc. There are 14 countries in Africa, technically 15. Comoros uses it, but they call it a different name. They call it the Comorian franc, works the same way. But these countries that use the CFA franc are required to hold half of their national reserves in the French treasury in Paris. And there's 2 regional banks. There's one in West Africa and one in Central Africa. France has basically de facto veto power in those banks because in order to pass financial decisions, there are certain votes that have to be unanimous. Every African country that uses the currency gets a vote, and France gets a vote. So if every country agrees, but except for France, those African countries cannot pass and move forward with certain economic decisions. So this big, leads to the emergence of this big anti-imperialist struggle within the region. And then around 2019, we see an explosion in Mali, particularly against French military occupation. So Mali was the headquarters of France's Occupation Barkhane, like the Barkhane operation, which was their basically grip on West Africa as a whole, but really headquartered in Mali with a lot of troops. We see tens and tens and tens of thousands of people out in the streets calling for the former president, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, to be overthrown, calling for an end to France's military presence in the country, and calling for a diversification. I guess that's a nice way to put it. Calling basically to no longer collaborate with NATO countries and to collaborate with other potential countries that don't have those imperialist interests. That is what happened. That's what leads to the coup in Mali, which is a revolutionary coup. Some people get confused. Coups are more often than not reactionary in Africa, but they can be revolutionary. There have been.
Can you tell us the difference between a reactionary coup and a revolutionary coup?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's not even that hard to understand. It's, first of all, what is the interest of the person coming to power? Are they aligned with the people? Are they working to uplift the people and their needs? Or is it somebody who's just out for a power grab? And you can usually tell pretty quickly. Thomas Sankara came up through the military. That was a coup, but it was a revolutionary coup. And he's, one of the greatest leaders that Africa has ever had. Muammar Gaddafi, I know people are confused about him, sometimes in other parts of the world, but in the continent, especially in the Sahel, we're not confused. People are very clear. Muammar Gaddafi was actually somebody who fought on behalf of not just the Libyan people, but Africa as a whole. He also came to power via coup. That's very different from Sani Abacha of Nigeria, who is a, bloody, terrible, reactionary. And so we can see the character of and also who they're aligning with. So in the context of the Alliance of Sahel States, when we see these coups, we realize immediately that they're not Western backed. We understand the West has been exploiting Africa for 500 years now. There's never going to be an African leader that's serving the people and serving the West at the same time. So it indicates something when, Western governments are freaking out, we don't like this guy, get him out. It's a signal. So we see this, in Mali, we have Assimi Goïta comes to power. He starts collaborating not with the U.S., but with, Russia, which the U.S. doesn't like. but has a less exploitative relationship to the African continent, and expels France, which is exactly what the people have called for. So I just want to emphasize, like, the people called for these things. It's not like the president, some guy just came to power and he's like, I have a great idea. No, there were like tens and tens of thousands of people who are in the streets with these demands. And we see that move to Burkina Faso in terms of, when I came to Burkina Faso, everybody was paying attention to Mali. Mali was like, oh my gosh, like this is like the dream, because it was right next door and it had done this, had this revolutionary process start first. And so the people in Burkina Faso, also with that Sankara legacy in mind, you know, they start really fighting to have something similar. And then after Burkina Faso has this revolutionary coup, everybody is just waiting on Niger. I mean, it was so interesting to see. There was like so many false alerts. You could scroll on like TikTok and there'd be like a false coup alert in Niger that wasn't real, but everybody was anticipating it. We were like waiting for it to happen, like it was inevitable. But all that to say, you know, these are people led, you know, from the beginning. Now, I want to just talk quickly about what it looks like on the ground now in terms of how people are integrated, because it's incredible. Like I said, I grew up in the United States. I have never, ever been in a position where I have like ever defended the government of this country or been like, whoa, the president, like never. That's just, it's like antithetical.
Because, you know, they love Obama. You can't say nothing about Obama in Emerson.
It's hard, but if you know the truth, once you really understand what he's about, you realize you really cannot defend any of these presidents, none of them, none of them. But it's so different in Burkina Faso, where it's like I'm not even kidding. People would die for this president, and it's not because of him as an individual, but they have this mentality like it's for the country, like it's for the homeland. We need to protect this man. So we have something in Burkina Faso in the local language. It's called the Waïa. In French, it's la veille citoyenne, which in English is kind of like the Citizens' Night Watch. The Waïa means like come and go out. It was this mobilizing cry, like come and go out, Waïa, Waïa. And what it is basically, it was this grassroots initiative of people coming together to say, we need to protect and defend President Ibrahim Traoré and this revolutionary process as a whole, and serve as the eyes and the ears of this revolution. So they started coming out to different roundabouts, like in the capital city of Ouagadougou, as well as the other second biggest city, Bobo Dioulasso. There's roundabouts in every single neighborhood. So they created these like neighborhood stations where they come out and they go out at around 9 p.m. and they stay out into the streets until like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, just to like make sure that there's no funny business, everything's okay, nobody's trying to destabilize anything. And, you know, this has become a site of like popular and political education and exchange. And I mentioned the two biggest cities because that's where you see it in every single neighborhood, but there are 2,000 villages and towns across the country, according to one of the leaders of this network that currently have these groups. And I've traveled the length of Burkina Faso. I've been, I've been to the south, I've been to the east, the west, you know, and I see them. They're all over the place. And so people are really organized. It's become something that is now integrated with the state in the government. Before it was just popular and grassroots, but now they actually do have like official sort of an official network that is in communication and working with the government to do this. The other thing I want to mention, and this is like incredible, it can be hard to conceptualize again, because in the US, the military is not serving the people. It's an imperialist force, right? It's mostly, you know, killing people and carrying out U.S. interests for money abroad. But in Burkina Faso, there's a different relationship with the military, but also with militarism. So I mentioned, like, I'm part of the Thomas Sankara Center, this Pan-African Library and Political Education Center, that's based in the capital city of Burkina Faso. So we often are trying to like recruit people to join our political education work. And sometimes like our neighbors who are in our communities who are working to like bring in will disappear for a long time. And it's like, what's going on? Like, where are you? What happened? And they'll pop up like 6-8 months later. And they'll be like, oh yeah, hey, I was a volunteer for the defense of the homeland, which is a civilian turned combatant fighting force. And so they're like, I was just on the front lines defending the country from these imperialist backed, and this is another thing I have to get into, but these imperialist backed death squads, what we call these terrorist organizations. You know, these are just regular people that we know that just do this. Like there's so many of them that the president has actually come out and said, like, we can't have every young person sign up. We need some of y'all to like focus on your studies. But people really want to like risk their lives to defend this process. I don't want to speak for too long because I have some incredible folks who want to tap in, but I'll just say like real quick, because I did touch on the terrorist thing. Like, if you come to the Sahel, there is no question that these terrorist organizations are Western backed. We first heard evidence, or we first heard this being stated explicitly in 2022, first from Mali's government at the UN General Assembly. And it was like mind-blowing because we hadn't heard an African leader speaking this way in so long. It was the Prime Minister of Mali coming out and saying that France was illegally violating Mali's airspace and providing arms and intelligence to terrorist organizations that they claimed to have been fighting against. And since that time, we've heard this consistently from the AES leaders, and we've heard this consistently from the majority of the people living across the Sahel. Like, they're very clear. This is not just like a Africans fighting each other thing, because that's what we see in the media. Like, if you are familiar with maybe like Central America's history, and I know not everybody knows, but like the US used to like back and like fund these death squads.
The Contras.
The Contras, like in Nicaragua, for example. That's more what these terrorist groups are like. You know, it's like, this is not just a random thing. These are reactionary forces that the West is using, and they've been using it as a pretext to militarily occupy the Sahel up until this point. Now they're using these sort of terrorist groups as a sort of also like a pretext, or like their message that they want is that, you know, by attacking the Sahel right now, they want people to believe that the Sahel was better off under this previous military occupation. But it's not true. Burkina Faso has liberated significant portions of its territory. The western area, the Burkina Mali border, used to not be able to cross that. Now we can cross that safely.
Oh, wow.
Some parts of northern Mali, Kidal, which was like really like the terrorist stronghold, has been liberated. So there have been these developments, but it's also like it's an ongoing struggle because they are fighting very hard. They've moved more into Niger now, and I think, gosh, not to go on for too long, I have a lot to say. But just real quick, just last thing, I think a lot of the reason why the terrorists are also focusing now on Niger in particular is because Niger is the first African country to expel U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM. Eritrea is one country in Africa that has never agreed to work with AFRICOM. Niger is the very first country that previously signed an agreement and then declared U.S. military presence in the country illegal. So it's being like, there's a crackdown on the country right now in terms of some of the attacks that are happening. And I strongly believe that it's the message that they want is like, you were better when we were occupying you. They're trying to defeat morale, but we can't allow them to do that because it's, you know, this is, anyways, if I start,
I want to let people know AFRICOM was headed up by the Black general who you saw come out and say, you know, that Ibrahim Traore was using funds and disproportionately, and you know, really tried to start something up. I don't know what's going on with my mic, but I'm going to not talk much because my mic is messed up. So, Willie, we have one more question that I want Clinton to take. How is the movement to raise awareness and push for action around the wars in Sudan and the Congo taking shape in Zambia? Unmute.
Sorry. I think generally, just the way earlier on William touched on education, for a long time in Africa, we've had a problem in that the narrative has always been driven by these Western media outlets, media organizations. So I think if you go to Zambia today, you are going to find that most of the news that is consumed, the news that even comes out from our state broadcaster, who are like the country's main broadcaster, comes out from BBC, AFP, and Reuters news wires. So literally, all the information that we have is what the Western powers want us to know. Because I think it doesn't take one to be a genius that whatever information the BBC puts out there is information that has to be approved somewhere in these powers of corridor in the West. So if the people in Zambia, if the people in Malawi, if the people in Zimbabwe, they are depending on the BBC, it means that whatever the conflict is going on in Congo, whatever conflict is going on in Sudan or any part of the continent, we are going to see it through Western lenses. So where we are told, yeah, this is just a normal day for Africans, these guys are always killing each other, that's how they are. We never get a chance to see the colonial roots of these conflicts on the continent. So this is why outlets like African Stream are very important. Or African Stream was very important. And it's a reason why so much effort was put together to make sure that we go down. because they knew that we are opening the eyes of people on the continent to see that when you see all of a sudden in Mozambique, they find billions of gas reserves, all of a sudden we've got an insurgency problem. So we were opening the eyes of the people in Africa that there is usually a connection between these people, and it made certain people uncomfortable, power forces uncomfortable. And then we saw what happened to African Stream, very tragic. But I think in the period that we are operational, we've managed to inspire many people across the continent and beyond.
Across the world.
Across the world, indeed. Because people have known, they've known that it's not just possible that we can tell our own stories in a very professional, quality, and factual manner. We've proven it. Because for a long time, in all these journalism schools across the continent, students were told that BBC reporting should be the template for professional journalism. But slowly people are waking up to say that's garbage. That's hogwash. So they realized African Stream opened the way. And it's it's an absolute pleasure to see many alternative news outlets pop up. Because not only are they popping up because they saw what we did, but I think it also enabled many people who probably for a long time they had plans to set up media outlets, but those plans remained in a drawer somehow because they were not sure if there was appetite for anti-imperialist Pan-African news. So after we did, a number of other outlets have come in and people do consume news. I was one time pleasantly surprised. So I'm in this WhatsApp group. Like back home, not even in an urban area, in a rural part of Zambia. It's most to do with issues of farming when people start buying fertilizer and whatever to plant. Then one day someone shared a news link, and it came from one of the outlets that I know that kind of collaborated with African Stream. So I was just shocked at how much they were able to penetrate African minds in a rural part of Zambia. Someone who is not even that urbanized to say they're part of a movement, but that's just an ordinary person. But it means that now even ordinary people are starting to consume revolutionary news. Something which way back it was just something that you would find in this political studies circle of people who already had a certain kind of revolutionary conscience. But we are slowly getting there.
It's so necessary because the United States and Britain has figured out how to get to those people, right? I mean, the amount of content that I was in a mountain village in Togo, and there was a painting of Usher, the singer, on the side of a barbershop. And I was like, how do these people know about Usher? Because I know Usher doesn't know about this mountain village in Togo. So, it's so great to hear that you guys have managed to inspire a continent, and the biggest continent, contrary to what they've taught us here in the West. And I look forward to you all continuing to inspire us. Here in the States, we are in our own impending fascist struggle that is not going to go quietly, and it is absolutely happening in a rapid pace. And I think what's happening here is a lot of people are waking up very quickly, and they're bumping their head doing it, right? Because they can't believe what Inem has. Am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah, Inem.
Okay, because they can't believe what Inem has always known, that this is the United Snakes, and that is a bite that has really penetrated the skin. I'm just keeping the metaphor going. I'm keeping it going. And I think what is going to be really helpful for so many folks here is getting to be able to connect with folks like you all and listen to what you all are talking about, and understanding that this is also something that they can learn about from folks who have been through this. And from nations and peoples who have been through this. And, people always say to me, like, what has Palestine ever done for Black people? And I'm like, well, actually, during the Ferguson riots, Palestinians were on Instagram and Twitter talking to people to tell them how to handle tear gas, how to deal with these police forces, because they have to deal with them all the time. And they're the same people that are training the police forces that are suppressing folks in the United States. So I really look forward to us and our relationship growing. And as I'm talking to you all, my heart is just like exploding and expanding, because I'm like, Africa. And here in the United States, I don't know Black people that don't love Africa. I don't know those Black people. Like, those are not the people that I am in community with, right? I know Black people who have flown to the continent, and as they're landing, they cry because it's like, I am home. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about me. And so moving forward, once a month, we'll connect with one of you all to give us like 3 headlines that are going on the continent so that we can keep folks here on this North American continent connected to the struggles, to the joys, and to the movements that are happening across the Atlantic. So I look forward to doing that. And thank you once again for coordinating this, Ahmed, and making this happen. And again, for making African Stream happen to send this revolution into motion, this media revolution into motion.
Thank you for having us. We're huge fans of your work. Usually when I tell people someone wants to do a podcast, it's going to be late your time, they're like, I don't know. But as soon as I mention your name, everyone was like, yeah, I'm down. Let me be the Kenya representative.
He's talking about you, William. And by the way, William, I want you to know, if this journalism thing you're doing doesn't work out, you could be a hand model. You have perfect hands. So just know that you have a whole career that you can pivot to if need be. All right. Thank you all so much. And we will be in touch for the next Africa Tap In. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Y'all. The United Snakes. She was not playing, and we love it. Of course, and the message is from the Bay. Shout out to the Bay. I remember going to an event when I first got into the graduate program at Columbia, and the conversation had a sister from what's it called? It had a sister from the Bay, and she was like, listen, the Bay is known for 2 things, pimping and Panthers. And I love that. I have to get a new XLR cord because I don't know what's going on here. Why is this giving me buzzing? But I'm going to figure that out by the next week. All right, you guys, let me play this video while I get prepared for our next segment, which is our critical thinking exercise. So let your brains get in motion because that's what we are about to do. AmandaLanders, it is time. The AmandaLand Summit has arrived this weekend at the People's Forum in New York City. Now, if you are not one of the members of the actual summit, you can still participate in some of our awesome events. One, we have Cracking Up the System going down on Saturday morning, where we are combining comics, Davidson Boswell and Christina Brown, with organizers Angelica Landon and Claudia de la Cruz to talk about organizing. I know so many of y'all are like, what's the solution? What can I do? Well, we're not only going to tell you about what you can do, but we're going to do it funny. Because that's what we do at Smart, Funny, and Black Productions. In addition, that evening, we have a live taping of Views from AmandaLand, the first ever. And my guests will be I Am Blakely.
I don't know why some of you, my fellow marshmallow bitches, are trying to argue with me in the comments about this fact. I used to get butthurt and defensive when Black people would make generalizations about me because I'm white. But eventually I decided that I was going to choose not to be offended by it anymore because I realized that people make assumptions based on aggregate data. Because you understand that despite a lot of men being like, well, not all men, you can look to data and your own experiences. You don't think Black people look to their own experiences and the aggregate data they see about the way white people treat them?
And Eugene per year.
And the struggle of the Palestinian people for freedom, for self-determination and dignity speaks to the exact opposite agenda of the imperialists. It speaks to a crossroads of the world, a cradle of civilization, a West Asia and North Africa rooted in peace, rooted in people living together regardless of whatever your religion may be, rooted in a democratic set of values. I mean, it's the exact opposite of the brutal, corrupt regimes that have been installed with Israel at the center to maintain imperial hegemony. So crushing the Palestinian people is critically important to the entire imperial project to reassert its own power at a moment that it is slipping. So Gaza is the compass. that helps us orient and understand that reality.
So these are events that you can attend. It's $10 to come in person and $5 to watch on live stream. And all folks under 18 are free admission. Just go to peoplesforum.org and get your ticket. And let's just say that you can't do any of this, but you want to support, go to amandaseals.com and donate, because this whole thing is coming out of my pocket. So excited to finally make this happen. And it's only happening because the AmandaLanders said, we want this. We want to be together in person, and we want to put our minds together to elevate not just ourselves, but our community. So we'll be doing that this weekend at the first ever AmandaLand Summit. Oh, and before I forget, we're going to have the AmandaLand Export Store pop-up. So for those of you who want to get your goodies and also some exclusive stuff that is not available online, we will see you at the People's Forum. And yes, we will have security, because we are not playing with these crazy people. We are not playing with these crazy people. And I know that may have been a concern for folks. So I just want you to know that we will have security. Shout out to Eugene. I am Blakely, to Claudia de la Cruz, to Davidson Boswell, to Angelica Landon. And why is my mic doing this? It's so annoying. Hold on. I just want to see something. It's the cord, and I have to get a new cord. And maybe it's my headphones. Is it? Maybe. You all don't hear anything weird? Okay, maybe there's that. Yeah, so shout out to everyone who's going to join us after the show. I want to remind you that if you want to continue the conversation, then you can join us for the after show kickback at patreon.com/AmandaSeals. My Patreon is only $5. And when you join Patreon, you are not only supporting my work, but you are also supporting a community of folks that are engaged in conversation on a regular basis, that are sharing information, that are sharing encouragement, all the above. So really excited to continue to do that. And that will be happening after the show. Now, I am so glad to see all the positive comments from you guys about the goddamn interviews that we just did. I'm so happy. So you all really thought that was really good, because I'm so excited that I'm able to do this and like expand. And I would love to be able to get folks in Asia. I mean, I'm really like, okay, now we got to go worldwide. Now I need a representative on each continent. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Now it really just like took me to a whole other like, oh my gosh. Shout out to TR who joined Patreon a week ago, my SEAL squad. LOL Lester. So Desmond Thorne, who's come on here to talk to us about movies and film, he's like, oh, I just heard support a real one. When's the new album coming out? And I laugh about that like once a day. All right. Side note, because this is the point of the show where I just talk to y'all about what's going on. Do y'all know that my couch has currently been disassembled? I literally have taken all the cushions off of my couch because my cat been peeing on the couch. And so I really was just like, this is how we're just going to stop this. We're just going to remove the cushions from the couch. This is what it is having a cat. So when people are like, your house is messy, it's not because the cat's like, and the litter, it's because of stuff like that. Like I got to take the cushions off the couch because Huri want to act up. And I don't know if it's stress, because I don't know. So Huri is chilling. What is she stressing? I'm putting up the little pheromone things. She's got 3 litter boxes to choose from. Ain't nobody stressing Huri. Old age. Man, Huri's 6. She's not even considered an adult yet. Listen, Connie Norseworthy, my cat Mando will do the same thing, and he's right here. If I leave clothes on the floor, it's a wrap. I put on something the other day because I was just running outside. Yeah, he peed on it. So these are the lessons. I remember Amy Goodman telling me that like her cat always like claws through her clothes. So sometimes she'll be like on Democracy Now! And realize like in the monitor that there's a hole in her sleeve from the cat. She's like, I literally have to be like, oh, wait. Actually, here's the thing about having a cat. Particularly if you have one cat, that's like super easy. And it's not that you don't want a cat. It's just that there's things to know about a cat the same way that there are things to know about a dog. You don't ever have to potty train a cat. You just got to know what type of weird stuff it's going to do. And you find that out in real time. And I don't think all cats are a-holes. You know, like, I mean, my two kittens are amazing. But none of them, well, so I'm starting to get their personalities even more. So for instance, like Sankara will meow when she wants you to pick her up. And so she'll just be like, meow, meow. Like, and that means pick her up. And then she'll just like let you hold her and she'll hang out. And then like Lumumba will do the same. One thing I love about Lumumba is that he will just go somewhere else in the house and just be like by himself. And it's not even like he's over there asleep. He just goes over there to have alone time. It's so funny. And you'll walk in and he'll like look at you like, oh, hey, I was just reading a book. Like, that's so funny to me. Like, I've never had a cat do that. And then when he's ready to come and hang out, he'll come and hang out. But he'll go and be like by himself. Oh, baby Priscilla, she has a litter box right there. And it's not happening at night. One time I was sitting on the couch and I was looking in the other direction. And when I looked back, she had peed next to me on the couch. Come on! And she started doing this before the kittens got there. But also Lando had passed away. Rest in peace to our baby Lando. So I don't know if I just got to stick it out. But what I've been doing is also like putting more strong scents around there, like lavender. So, you know, we're just trying to work it out, y'all. But sometimes these are like the kind of life distractions that I welcome, because we are in such an unstable time that sometimes it's like these seemingly like annoying, but like also innocuous disruptions that do pull your attention in a real way can be like a respite from these things that you cannot control. I mean, I can't control her peeing either, but you know what I'm saying. It just, sometimes I've had to like readjust my perspective to think about it as more of just a positive, or more of just like a privilege, a side quest, Judy Moody, a side quest. Yeah, I mean, listen, Huri's the eldest in the house. Huri comes and cuddles with me. You know, we're all just trying to work it out. Speaking of trying to work it out, let's get into our critical thinking exercise, because the shirt delivery did not come until today and it was supposed to come yesterday. And so somehow I have to figure out how to bag up at least half of these shirts today. You know what? I don't understand how drug dealers do it, because I'm having to get y'all shirts out late and there's no threat for my life. There's no threat for my life. So for the dealers who are trying to bag it up because they gotta push this or else they're gonna get marked, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure. So I'm gonna have to call on some folks around the way. They said you need to call for us for help, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna be calling you, because baby, I'm about to be putting some shirts in some bags, bagging it up. Bagging it up. And no, Diana G, you can, but these people who are not AmandaLanders and who are not SEAL squatters, they are in my inbox. Where is my shirt? Where is it, ma'am? You had said that it would be here. Yes, Diana, they are on my head, okay? They're not even being rude. It's just like, they're like, where's it at? And for what it's worth, I said it would be there within 30 days. And so it should have been. It's unfortunately out of my control for the reason why it's not. But I'm pissed that I'm looking like I don't got my act together. Ugh. Listen, pissed. They to deliver the surrounded shirts to the damn TPF. Yeah, the squad is like, sis, we see you. We know why we don't have the shirts. We see you every day. So, you know what? Thank you, Kirsten. Kirsten said, I ain't gonna hold you. I be forgetting. So it'd be like, hey, listen. But I'm excited for, I'm doing a little setup with like everything in one place from AmandaLand Exports at the summit. So that should be cute. And I'm looking forward to that. Rolando, same. I didn't have digital crackheads on my 2025 bingo card either. Didn't have it. You'll also be able to purchase my poetry book, Young Skin, Wise Mind, Old Soul. You'll be able to get a signed copy, which has never been available from me, since I became a somewhat famous person. And you'll also be able to get Views from AmandaLand pins. Those will also be available. And you'll also be able to get Smart, Funny, and Black patches. And I might even sell some art prints. I got to go to the storage space today and dig in. So a lot of stuff going on, and I'm excited to be able to share all of that with you. Let's get into our critical thinking exercise. Critical AmandaLand. Let's get So this week's critical thinking exercise asks the question, talks about the power of media. All right. We're going to talk about the power of media. Now, this is a really important conversation considering the context that we've been experiencing here in the last week around an unaliving of someone, and not just their role in media, but also how media has been used to propagandize their death. And we cannot overlook this, okay? It is very important to acknowledge that the media is actively being used to propagandize this person's death. I am not saying their name because I'm really like, wrap it up. Wrap it up. Okay. But they're not going to wrap it up because they're using it as a key component to how they want to move things forward. Now, we need to take it back, though. We need to take it back to the media and its role in creating violence. All right. Now, state sanctioned violence is a whole other level. And that's what I want to take us to. Now, we know that media can, of course, incite violence. Media can, of course, influence people. And that is not an argument that I think anybody would give it. However, what we are failing to acknowledge on a regular basis is the way media, which is controlled by the state, whether overtly or covertly, is being used to not just incite state-sanctioned violence, but to excuse state-sanctioned violence. And Noam Chomsky has called this manufacturing consent. Now, let's take it back to the Nuremberg trials that took place after World War II. There was an actual precedent set during this time because propaganda was very much a part of how the Third Reich was able to move forward in its work. And there were people that were a part of this. There was a guy named Hans Frisch, who was one of the individuals chiefly responsible for the Nazis' newspaper and their radio propaganda. And he was born in 1900. He served in World War I. He studied liberal arts at the university, but he left and he just didn't involve himself in that. But then he started a newspaper chain that supported the right-wing national parties. So it wasn't just the Nazis, it was a right-wing newspaper. So it spoke from a point of view that supported any political parties that supported that point of view. Well, he went on to continue commenting on radio in September 1932, discussing all of these politics around the right. And he had a show called Hans Frisch Speaks. That same year, he was made head of the wireless radio news department. So he wasn't a member of the party, but he was like a part of their cause because they aligned with his mindset about how things should be. And he had been visited by members of the party. He was absolutely a part of the way that it was working. And he said in his own affidavit, during the entire period from 1933 to 1945, it was the task of the German press division to supervise the entire domestic press and to provide it with directives by which this division became an efficient instrument in the hands of German state leadership. More than 2,300 German daily newspapers were subject to this control. The reason why this is very important for you all to understand is because right now we find ourselves in a time where we are looking at the United States government, when in reality, what we're looking at is also an administration, right? So let's just say that there was a coup, or let's just say that there was an effort to like overthrow what we are experiencing. I can promise you that they would be sequestered into the Trump administration or MAGA. And anybody else who has not outwardly aligned with that would no longer have to be in alignment with them. And so they would be looked at as not the US government being propagandists, but instead of the administration being propagandists. That's what we are experiencing, and we can learn from the Nuremberg trials from Frisch, who was put in position because he was a radio host. And remember, podcasts are just another form of radio. He was put in that position to then monitor all of these other media spaces. Well, let's look at the United States right now. The United States has these companies who are now taking over all of these media places, media sites. And a lot of these companies are oligarchs who are outwardly sympathetic and in alignment directly with the Trump administration. Whether we're talking about Google or Facebook or even TikTok. Actually, let's talk about TikTok, because TikTok just stepped into a whole other situation that I don't think enough people are paying attention to. You see, TikTok has been a significant thorn in the side of this right-wing regime, but also the imperialists, because it was supposed to be like a place for dancing, and it became a place for educating, and it actively undermined the colonialist effort to annex Gaza. TikTok is now going to officially be the surveillance tool of the Trump regime, because Larry Ellison, who built Oracle and who has a weird contrast of facial hair to head of hair, built the detention and surveillance state in China via Oracle, and now he's coming here to do it here. Now, there's many positives to China, but one of the problems with China is this. It is this, and the irony that you're probably going, hold up about right now is that, wait, wasn't they saying that was the problem in China? That they didn't want them to be able to surveil us? Wasn't that the issue with TikTok? Right. What the issue was they was like, they can't have it if we can't have it. And so now we'll have it. That's why they extended the takeover of TikTok. Because if it had just went away, then they wouldn't have it as a tool. And now it is a tool. Okay? So we have to acknowledge these realities, right? And that is exactly the point, Adrian. They didn't want China to surveil us so that the United States could surveil us. So let's continue this conversation around the power of media. The power of media and how things get represented. Now, we know that the manufacturing of consent is the use of certain headlines of shock and awe to really sway the masses to respond a certain way to a particular event that then the government can come behind and move along with their own plan. Now, you might ask, well, why would they even care if the masses agree or not? Because it's cheaper. It's cheaper if the masses agree. You don't got to arrest people and, you don't got to kill them and, you don't got to do all this messy stuff. And because you look like you're in power. And that is the goal of the United States government, to always look like they're in power. Richard Nixon continued to send young men over to Vietnam, knowing full well that the United States could not win the war because the Pentagon Papers had already come out and already whistle blew it, knew full well. He continued to send them over there because he didn't want the U.S. to look weak. They're playing a game of power while we're playing the game of life. So when we talk about manufacturing consent, we have to think about as it relates to this situation that went on last week. I saw the headlines for when this person was shot, and I saw the headlines for when this person died. The headlines when they were shot specifically said the person's name and they'd been shot. However, the headline for their death was announced in the specific context of Donald Trump announces that so-and-so has been unalived. That is a very important context that was presented to the American people. It is literally the same version of Donald Trump signing COVID checks to make it look like he's the one that gave you the COVID checks when really it was Congress passing that. It is a particular alignment that contextualizes information for the people who are receiving it in a particular way. And this is how the media is complicit in the propaganda, because the media all ran with that headline. The media did not share that this person had been unalived until they were given the go-ahead to present it a particular way. And they all complied. And they all comply because they are a part of a larger consortium of media control. The same consortium, a version of the same consortium of media control that Frisch was talking about the Third Reich having during Nazi Germany. So now we're not just talking about media. The government is media, because now we're not even just saying the reporters are reporting what they're being told. The actual government officials are choosing to report in their own words, and they're doing so in completely false ways. Within hours of that person losing their life, the president of the United States came on and said this.
Our country, from the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others. Radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Tonight, I ask all.
Now, again, if you are the radical, if the radical left are the ones doing the violence, then where do y'all stand? And we all know what alt-right means. So they're telling you very loudly what they're about. And yet you will still see people who do not consider themselves alt-right defending who they're defending. I mean, this guy just came on here and flat out lied.
The statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics.
Okay, they want to put music over this. J.D. Vance came on here and said it is a statistical fact that American politics today are proud members of the far left. And then there is a montage of January 6th and people saying, yeah, effing get him. Then you have the individuals in Charlottesville who were chanting, they will not replace us. Then you have these new Nazis hiling with the flag of the SS. I'm just like, the lie is so loud, but people will listen because they don't critically think otherwise, which is why this is our critical thinking exercise this week. Because I want you all to have the media literacy to ask the question when it is presented to you, when you don't see something that doesn't make sense to you. Because what most people unfortunately do is when it's presented to them and it doesn't align with what they think, they doubt themselves versus saying, let me look further. They doubt themselves because they have been taught to believe that these sources are more informed, that these sources are more trustworthy, that these sources are more aligned with information, when that is not the case, because ultimately these sources are not here to give you information. They are here to give you indoctrination. The media, as it stands in the United States, is not for the purpose of information. It is for the purpose of indoctrination. And the sooner that you understand that, the better you will be equipped with identifying the problem so that you can properly identify solutions. Because I see people all the time saying, I want to know the solutions. We got to talk about the solutions. And they are not able to identify the problem. If you cannot properly identify the problem, you cannot properly identify the solution, and you can't properly identify the problem because you are at the behest of information sources that are lying to you about the problem. They're able to lie to you about the problem because you have Ronald Reagan, who repealed the Fairness Doctrine, which said that the media has to have proof before it spreads anything out. The media can't just say whatever. No, that was repealed. That was repealed with Ronald Reagan, and ever since then, we have gotten things like Fox News, where they can just lie, and it does not have consequences. And now you see white people saying things like, I'm scared that my son is going to fall into the trap of the alt-right online. I saw a guy do a whole 5-step toolkit for how you can prevent your white son from falling into the alt-right trap online. I mean, I did not know that all of this alt-right madness was going on over there, because it's not happening over here on the left. There is no left-wing hole for your son to fall into that's going to cause him to become a hateful, disrespectful, inhumane individual. That is not the stance of the left by any means. They want you to believe that, though. And every time the media engages in these conversations about it as if it is something valid, it is actually giving credibility and credence to something that is not the case. I love how Mehdi Hassan dealt with Chris Cuomo here.
How would you analyze what you're hearing in response to this murder from the left?
From the left? I mean, just listening to the clips you played from the Trump administration, we're in a very dark moment. It's a very McCarthyite moment right now. I've been listening to your show. You made a lot of good points. The biggest point I think you've glossed over is the crackdown on free speech, this targeting of people for their views. I thought Charlie Kirk was supposed to be a free speech martyr. Why are the right using his death to crack down on free speech and American rights and go after this amorphous left? J.D. Vance lied today on the Charlie Kirk show when he said the statistics are clear that this is a left-wing problem. It's the exact reverse. Right, exact reverse. You look at the ADL Center for Extremism, which looked at 444 people killed by extremists between 2013 and 2022, 75% of them by the right. You look at the University of Maryland study that was done for their terrorism center, which found that from 1948 to 2018, right-wing extremists more likely to carry out violence than left-wing extremists. You look at the head of the FBI, who Donald Trump appointed, Chris Wray, who said the #1 domestic terror threat in this country comes from religious and racially motivated extremists, specifically white supremacists. You can keep going. The National Institute for Justice found that the majority of incidents since 1990, violent terroristic
acts were right-wing extremists. The single biggest day of political violence, Chris, in our lifetimes in this country was January 6th, 2021, when right-wing extremists attacked the Capitol, injured police officers. They were ideologically motivated. You and I agreed it was an insurrection at the time. So it's bizarre for Vance to go on TV or go online and say the exact opposite of what both the official statistics say and the think tanks say. All of our evidence tells us. I mean, there was a Democratic lawmaker, Chris, I don't know how many times we have to say this, who was murdered in her home with her husband in June by a Trump supporter. And Donald Trump today said, who? When he was asked about it, he said, who?
Mm-hmm. So, Mehdi, one quick thing. I do not think January 6th was an insurrection. I thought that it was all kinds of crimes.
You said it at the time, Chris.
I just don't.
You called it an insurrection at the time. You did. You did.
No,
I checked your Twitter before I came on
never
air.
thought.
Okay,
Go ahead, show it to me.
Check
But
it afterwards.
I never thought that they were trying to take over the government. That's what an insurrection is. But it doesn't matter. It was bad. But we're dealing with new bad stuff. But
it was political violence. We can agree, right, Chris? It was political violence.
100%.
Do you understand the level of ego and arrogance you must have to sit through that person rattling off fact after fact after fact after fact after fact after fact, and then tell them that they got a quote from you wrong? That they literally said, I checked Twitter before we came on. Like why do people come for those of us who have receipts? Like, we're neuro Ds. We have receipts. Neurospices, neurodiverges. Like, that's crazy. But how important was it for Mehdi to do that? So deeply important, because she's meowing. She wants to be picked up. So deeply important because these people are continuing to use media in an incredibly disingenuous and very harmful way, which brings us to the conversation of the stochastic terrorist. What is a stochastic terrorist, Amanda? A stochastic terrorist uses influential public platforms, such as mass media and social media, to repeatedly demonize a person or group, which inspires random, unpredicated acts of violence by their followers. The term for the overall phenomenon is stochastic terrorism. Here's what I want us to address here, though. So, like, that definition of stochastic terrorism basically acts as if violence only has one definition. And that, to me, is problematic. And this is a general, widely agreed upon version of the definition. But we have to make sure that we are acknowledging that violence does not have one definition. No matter how many times people try to present it to me as this homogenized thing, it's not. The same way that if a person is in self-defense, they should be able to defend themselves. The same way that the fact that we actually imprison women who have been sex trafficked for killing their owners because they're saying that their lives were not in danger is beyond my scope of comprehension. But then again, it's not, because of course they do not look at violation of women as somebody who, they don't look at violation of women as a life-threatening issue. So I want us to make sure that we are not overinflating, okay? Because there is something very real to the necessity for resistance. And yet we are constantly seeing on a regular basis these days, or not even just these days, on a regular basis, we are constantly seeing the positioning of resistance as violence. And at this point, I simply just want to no longer acknowledge resistance as violence. I'm just going to call it resistance. Because it's really a problem. It really says to people that there is no valid reason why someone should defend themselves, even if they are being harmed or their society is being harmed. And when we are not acknowledging the power of media, we are ignoring the ways in which it is used. Media is king means that it is the media that is going to talk to you. It is the media that is going to influence you. This is why there's always so much business around media. This is why the person who lost their life can be used in this way, because they weren't just anybody. They were deeply embedded in the usage of media for a particular message. And that message was one that was wholly committed to the amplification of incredibly violent rhetoric that absolutely falls under the definition of stochastic terrorism. Now, I want to hear from you guys. Where do you feel like you have seen examples of the media beyond Palestine? Because we know that one. But where have you guys seen examples of the media being used in ways that are adverse or that advance a problematic, and even taking it a step further, a violent rhetoric, or that excuse it? All right, Soraya says big pharma, 1000%. Like, it's crazy that we see medication commercials. Like, that's bugged out that we see medication commercials on a regular basis. And it's just natural. Like, why are we not seeing medication? Like, why? Oh, this is a really good one. U.S. Army. Yep. B. All that you can be, get an edge on life in the Army. Why do I know that? Why do I know that? Oh, perfect. Super duty tough work. Super duty tough work. The recent Fox News clip where dude said we should kill homeless folks. Yeah, he said it. And then he had to walk it back. You can't take backsies. Yeah, we should do lethal injection to the homeless. What? What? How? And you can't tell me that the video of that person being unalived at that college was not released by folks in alignment with the government. You cannot tell me, because the way that came to our phones, like that U2 album on iTunes, nah. And clear. Okay? What do the kids say? In HD, in 4K? That's what they say, in 4K. Yes. Drama 88, great example. When Trump was saying the Chinese was responsible for the pandemic and the Asian hate. Now, here's the example. Here's what I want to let you know, though. It's not simply that he was saying it. It's that it was being broadcast, and it wasn't actively being challenged by the news, because these reporters no longer exist in a place of challenging false rhetoric. No, they all exist in this whole, like, I have to be generic, or I have to be objective. Like, I remember Nicole Hannah-Jones on my show on Small Doses, and she was saying that she doesn't go to protests because she has to be an objective source. And at this point, I'm just like, I don't think that is a thing anymore. You can't truly be an objective source, and I don't know that ever was a thing. I mean, when you watch the movie The Post, and of course, they're gonna dramatize things, but the Washington Post is the ones who put out the Pentagon Papers after the New York Times did. They continued the story, which continued a very important reveal that the United States knew that they were losing in Vietnam and continued to send troops in to die, right? So they continued to do this. This got out. It was a big deal. And the Post had to make a decision on if they were going to be continuing this information in this information leak. If the Post had decided not to do that, right? If the Times had decided not to do that, then we as a people would be even more trusting of a government that did not care about us as a people enough to keep us from going into Vietnam. But it was, I would say, non-objective to share that information because it means that you are representing the people. I guess some would say, well, no, it's objective because it's just presenting the facts and the truth. But the reality is that you can do anything from a place of perspective. Let's get another example. Stand your ground. But this is a law. This is a law. I'm talking about media examples. So Roblox, Discord. I don't know enough to actually like agree or disagree with these. So there's weapons of mass destruction that's like the main one for my generation. Huge. I'm watching a movie right now. I ended up having to do something else, but I'm watching a movie right now called Shock and Awe about this, right? Alligator Alcatraz. Again, like the fact that this was ran with, the media ran with this terminology. It's bonkers. It's bonkers, but it says we are not being given information. We are being given indoctrination. And we have to be critically thinking every time we are taking this stuff in, or else we're just going to continue to perpetuate the problems. How do you feel today? Hey.
Saying the phrase "nobody deserves to die" is the lullaby we teach to quiet the ache. And I don't deny the ache, because some people see death overall as a tragedy. And I understand the perspective on the surface level. I'm just saying that ache is not the same thing as the truth. Let's talk about the first one. They had a family. Yes, they did. But so did the Pharaoh. So did every general who marched nations into graves. I just want you to understand, collapse does not pause because someone at home loves you. That's not how world logic works. If you weld your body to a collapsing system, I mean a relationship, a job, a marriage, a country, a party, an empire, whatever you want. You don't get to hide behind your children. Who told you that? Your allegiance becomes their inheritance. And collapse does not ask permission before it tears through bloodlines. Every empire that has ever fallen in world history was full of families. On both sides. Every oppressor was someone's father. Collapse does not discriminate. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It unravels whatever is sewn into its fabric. Let's just say they were misunderstood. Let's talk about another one. They were misunderstood. No. They are not the thing we're misunderstanding. We're talking about the distortion. Distortion is not a mistranslation. Collapse is not a word problem. They weren't misunderstood. They were committed. Their body carried the system. Let's talk about what could have changed. They could have changed. Maybe. But anybody could have changed. Possibility is not presence, though. Change is not a ghost. It's not an abstraction. It's a step. And until that step is taken, they remain fabric sewn to distortion, and the veil never waited for a what if. The tear comes, the fabric unravels. Let's talk about the good they did, though. Let's talk about the good they did. This happens with people like old Republican presidents all the time. Pharaohs built monuments. Rome built roads. Every empire hid scraps of good in its teeth, but a smile does not cancel out the blood beneath it. I promise you. Collapse is not paused by anyone's resume. They didn't know any better, though. They didn't know any better. We hear this with crime a lot, when the person in specific is a criminal. Ignorance can excuse error, but not persistence. Not when the warning stood before them. And they still welded their breath to distortion. At some point, not knowing becomes not caring, and not caring naturally leads to collapse. I'm just saying, let's talk about the most devious one, right? God wouldn't have wanted this. Scripture itself disagrees. Egypt's firstborn, Korah swallowed alive. The two women who fell to their death at Peter's feet. The Bible does not hide collapse. It records it not as murder, but as consequence. Not as cruelty, but as tearing. So no, overall, family, misunderstanding, possibility, charity, ignorance, even God's supposed reluctance. None of these can undo the consequence of welding your body to distortion, to a collapsing system. In general, it cannot save you. I want you to take this for yourself, right? Because this is a real sketchy time, but all those excuses not going to cut it. I'll even say them again. Family, misunderstanding, possibility, charity, ignorance, even God's supposed reluctance, none of those will save your life.
None of them. Shout out to Justin. That's how black I feel today, y'all. Okay. That is how black I feel today. Hey. Let's do this. AmandaLand. PSA. So when we see the devastation that is happening in Gaza, it is absolutely possible for you to feel like, well, then what are we doing? What is the point? When you hear Justin just speak how he did, and about collapse, right? And connecting yourself to collapse, it can make people feel like, well, what's the point? Because you feel like you're connected to collapse. And the reality is that the collapsing of any of these governments that have been built on our bodies, that have been built on our labor, that have built on belief systems that we have been unable to dissuade, is going to affect us, no doubt. That being said, it is necessary to collapse them. It doesn't change the reality that they have continued to exist in problematic contexts. And this has happened over and over and over and over and over and over again. In the United States, it hasn't. Not in the version that people are kind of like witnessing, but it will. It's inevitable at this point. That's why they're clawing and grasping on for dear life. But we, as a people, cannot be dissuaded from our necessity to continue to challenge. And we are watching more and more people see it as their role to do so.
Warned by New York University to leave the area. Please leave the plaza now or you will be arrested for trespass. By New York University to leave the area. Please leave the plaza now or you will be arrested for trespass. This
Look at this. The Netherlands has decided to ban imports from illegal Israeli settlements. Now, I mean, that's a little less than we need them to do, but nonetheless, you have in Times Square, for the first time ever, it says Israel is committing genocide on the side of a building. Then you have Together for Palestine. This is happening at Wembley Arena somehow. I don't know how that's going to go down, but actors Florence Pugh is a singer. Benedict Cumberbatch, Amelia de Moldenberg, and Ruth Negga are among the names set to take part in the Together for Palestine fundraiser on September 17th. This feels like something similar to, what they were doing to raise money to challenge apartheid. What was that? It wasn't Farm Aid. What was that? Africa? I'm missing it, but remind me. So this event aims to raise millions for the Palestinian-led organizations at the front line of the crisis, such as Tawan, the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, and the Palestinian Live Aid medical relief. No, Live Aid was for something else, right? Live Aid was for South Africa? Was it? I can't remember. Then you have Susan Sarandon joining the Global Summit Flotilla. Yeah, she said, if y'all gonna blackball me, well then I'm gonna hit the seas.
Finally, go Birds, and free Palestine. Thank you.
Israelis, Jews and Palestinians, you will let me finish and then you can curse me all your life. No problem.
This was big news for Palestine, but was not all over the news. Listen.
The state of Palestine can now enjoy its right to be seated among member states of the General Assembly in alphabetical order. This is history in the making for 140 or more than that of us. The state of Palestine possesses all the legal elements of a state.
Now that's great. They still don't have full membership, but this is what they do have. The Palestinians can now submit proposals and amendments.
Some comments. The representative of Israel perhaps did not listen attentively to all council members and other speakers in today's debate. And in our view, it is unacceptable, indeed ludicrous, for an aggressor, an occupier, a serial violator of UN Charter and international law, that is Israel, to abuse this chamber and disrespect the sanctity of this council. And this is not the first time.
While you are right, I wanted to remind you that as of today, Israel struck a deal with TikTok and YouTube. The algorithm is about to switch up real fast. Apparently, if you've been speaking out against Israel, all your content will be flagged. They're going to analyze every single one of your video all the way from the past. So for the past 2 years, for people like me who have been speaking out against Israel, don't be surprised whenever my video pops up on your page and you can't hear the sound. Also, they're voting on another bill that states if you've been speaking out against Israel, there's a possibility your passport could be taken away. Make it make sense. Also, let's not forget that the Supreme Court green-lighted racial profiling by ICE. Wild stuff gets introduced all the time, but look at where we are now.
Now, for the record, that bill was actually struck, the one that said that your passport could be revoked if you were talking about Israel. But I've noticed that I am no longer shadow banned on Instagram, and I believe that that is because they're trying to like bait me. They're like, we're going to put her in more spaces and in more places of visibility to see what she's going to do. No, it's not going to work. I want to remind you all, though, that the reality is if you are engaging in any level of humanity at this point, then you are in resistance. I mean, that's how actually devoid and defunct of humanity those people are. So someone in the comments said that Susan Sarandon is lended her voice to the flotilla, but she's not physically on the flotilla. So they wanted to clarify that. And Live Aid is actually for AIDS, which makes sense. And shout out and rest in peace to Freddie Mercury. I say all of this to say that it is imperative that you stay encouraged. And one of the things that has helped me to stay encouraged is to zoom out. I talked about this on Morning Musings on my Patreon yesterday. When it feels like the chaos and the noise is right here, zoom out. Move it not away from you and out of your out of your vision, but move yourself further back to be able to see it. Allow your mind to zoom out from it. Why is this happening? How is it happening? What are the ways that it can be dealt with? How can it be actually managed, or if not solved in general? So, okay, I don't know what Live Aid was for. Y'all are in here saying Live Aid was for AIDS. Y'all saying it was for hunger in Africa. For what it's worth, Live Aid was not for the end of apartheid in South Africa. But there was a concert that was, and Whitney Houston sang at it, and she sang her face off, which, I mean, when does she not? So, please, in the midst of all this mayhem, stick to your guns. Stick to what you're about. Because folks want you to disagree with yourself. They want to sow doubt. And those folks don't even have a sense of self. So don't let that sense influence. Okay. PSA. Show your love. Show your love. Want to remind you all that we'll be joining the after show kickback after the show. So if you want to join the after show kickback, all you got to do is subscribe to my Patreon. It is $5 to join the after show kickback. I want to thank everybody who's rocked with us for the entire 4 hours. Shout out to our folks that are listening on the replay. Again, shout out to everybody who is listening on the podcast. And of course, shout out to our guests, Che Guerrero, as well as the individuals who joined us from all over the continent, which was such a big deal, right? Like, that was so major. I'm so proud of myself and Rebecca for pulling that off, because we put that together. And thank you to everybody who has given us supers in the chat. I really appreciate you, because this is a show that I do from my heart and my pocket. Now remember, we have another big deal happening this weekend. AmandaLanders, it's finally here. Do y'all remember the day that y'all were like, we should have an AmandaLanders summit? Do you remember that? When you suggested it in real time right here, and I was like, yeah, I think I could do it. And then we're doing it. I mean, come on, y'all. It's a big deal. So big ups to everybody who's going to be at the AmandaLand Summit. I look forward to meeting you all in person. And also remember, if you can't attend the summit, you can attend 2 events that are aligned with the summit. I will play the video again so you can make sure to sign up and not forget to go get your tickets. Also, if you want to just come by and come to the shop, to the AmandaLand export shop that will be set up, you can also do that. Of course, it will be at the People's Forum in New York City. Remember, the bonus question of the week is, can you be friends with a racist? Have you been friends with a racist? Did that friendship end? How did it go? Drop in the comments, because we want to make sure that we are having these conversations in the comments so that the algorithm can't shut us down. There's going to be a lot of shutting down coming, which is why I tell y'all all the time to please sign up for my newsletter. Which is why I tell y'all all the time to subscribe to my Patreon. Because again, we are on borrowed time in these spaces. This is really just them allowing us to have these conversations so that they can eventually blame us for inciting resistance. That's what they're going to use this for. It doesn't stop the necessity to have the conversations, though. It doesn't. Because it's imperative that if they're going to be continuing to amplify the rhetoric that has been so useful in suppression and oppression, then it has to be challenged. There's only one way to do that, and that's continuing to speak. That's continuing to support speakers. And that's continuing to, put your money behind organizations that are giving people a voice who they have decided are not even human. So shout out to all of you. I'll see you at the after show, or I'll see you at the summit, the AmandaLand Summit, because it's going down. Have a good one, y'all. AmandaLanders, it is time. The AmandaLand Summit has arrived this weekend at the People's Forum in New York City. Now, if you are not one of the members of the actual summit, you can still participate in some of our awesome events. One, we have Cracking Up the System going down on Saturday morning, where we are combining comics, Davidson Boswell and Christina Brown, with organizers Angelica Landon and Claudia de la Cruz to talk about organizing. I know so many of y'all are like, what's the solution? What can I do? Well, we're not only going to tell you about what you can do, but we're going to do it funny. Because that's what we do at Smart, Funny, and Black Productions. In addition, that evening, we have a live taping of Views from AmandaLand, the first ever. And my guests will be I Am Blakely.
I don't know why some of you, my fellow marshmallow bitches, are trying to argue with me in the comments about this fact. I used to get butthurt and defensive when black people would make generalizations about me because I'm white. But eventually I decided that I was going to choose not to be offended by it anymore, because I realized that people make assumptions based on aggregate data. Because you understand that despite a lot of men being like, well, not all men, you can look to data and your own experiences. You don't think black people look to their own experiences and the aggregate data they they see about the way white people treat them.
And Eugene per year.
And the struggle of the Palestinian people for freedom, for self-determination and dignity speaks to the exact opposite agenda of the imperialists. It speaks to a crossroads of the world, a cradle of civilization, a West Asia and North Africa rooted in peace, rooted in people living together regardless of whatever your religion may be, rooted in a democratic set of values. I mean, it's the exact opposite of the brutal, corrupt regimes that have been installed with Israel at the center to maintain imperial hegemony. So crushing the Palestinian people is critically important to the entire imperial project to reassert its own power at a moment that it is slipping. So Gaza is the compass that helps us orient and understand that reality.
So these are events that you can attend. It's $10 to come in person and $5 to watch on live stream, and all folks under 18 are free admission. Just go to peoplesforum.org and get your ticket. And let's just say that you can't do any of this, but you want to support, go to amandaseals.com and donate, because this whole thing is coming out of my pocket. So excited to finally make this happen. And it's only happening because the AmandaLanders said, we want this. We want to be together in person, and we want to put our minds together to elevate not just ourselves, but our community. So we'll be doing that this weekend at the first ever AmandaLand Summit. Oh, and before I forget, we're going to have the AmandaLand Export Store pop-up. So for those of you who want to get your goodies and also some exclusive stuff that is not available online, we will see you at the People's Forum. And yes, we will have security because we are not playing with these crazy people.
30 seconds of stillness. Amanda.